12 counties that are facing emergency levels of food insecurity. Public Service CS Margaret Kobia says 4.1 million Kenyans are facing food insecurity in 23 counties across the country.
The targeted counties are Turkana, Samburu, Isiolo, Garissa, Tana River, Baringo, Mandera, Wajir, Kitui, Kilifi, Kwale, and Marsabit. The food assistance will be provided for the 6 months through the cash transfer and in kind, with the beneficiaries' families set to receive 6,500 Kenya shillings per month.
Africa 100 meters champion Ferdinand Omanyala won Kenya's first gold medal in ongoing Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. Omanyala clocked 10 minutes and 2 seconds under windy situation to become the first Kenyan since Seraphine Antau in the 1960 to win gold in the sprints at a major championship. Omanyala bowed out in semis in the recently concluded World Athletics Championships in Oregon, USA. As the last day of campaigns is set for Saturday, the Azimio La Umoja team will today pitch camp in Luanda, Vihiga County and Jomo Kenyatta Stadium, Kisumu County. UDA Presidential William Ruto's campaigns will see them go to Kiusani and Kalamba, Makueni County and Muvita, Mombasa County. Both parties are expected to gather their funds in Kasarani Stadium and Nyayo Stadium respectively in Nairobi for their final rally on that Saturday. The High Court will today make a ruling on whether IEBC will rely on KEMS kits as the only mode of voter identification in next week's general elections or not. Several lobby groups have challenged the decision of the Commission to use KEMS kit. In a petition filed in court, the 7 lobby groups want the court to order IEBC to provide a manual register of voters in every polling station. They argue that the decision made by the Commission and its chair, Wafula Chebukati, is not only in violation of the statute but also susceptible to massive failure, which can lead to the ultimate postponement of the general election. Revisiting the death of IBC ICT officer Chris Musando 5 years later, Interior PS Karanja Kibicho says murder cases in the country may take long, but his family will finally get justice. The late Musando died on July 28, 2017, a day after he was reported missing. He was found at Muguga Forest alongside Carol Ngumbi, a 21-year-old college student who was last seen with him.
We don't have a timeline to close files on criminal activities like those. And you must agree with me, some of these do not take, it's not an on-off situation because you require to do deep investigations. DCI has been at it, and I think it's only fair to allow them to continue. We've seen murder cases in this country take some time, even 5 years, even 10 years, but eventually they come to conclude. And I believe the case of Musando will be the same one day.
Siaya, Kisumu and Nairobi are the country's most hostile counties to women aspirants in the August 9th general election campaigns. A new study by the Federation of Women Lawyers Kenya has shown the 3 counties lead in a list of 14 that account for more than half of recorded attacks against women during campaigns. FIDA said it recorded 745 attacks on women aspirants nationwide between April and June in a report released recently. And finally, the government has confirmed that they are moving security officers, equipment and machinery across the country as preparations for next week's elections get on high gear. Dozens of lorries, armed personnel and water cannons have been seen across the country in order to provide the needed security come next week Tuesday. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
Where you are the MVP.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
If I'm found guilty, there is no problem. I'm willing to serve. I have no problem. Jails are meant for human beings.
They say a society gets the leadership it deserves. If you have a corrupt, crooked and rotten society like we have in Kenya, then of course they will get that kind of a leadership.
I think the president should dissolve parliament. That's the best solution at this moment in time. Dissolve parliament.
All of you go home.
Yes, we all go home.
How are we encouraging other people who might have new and creative ideas? Young people who are making money without any government help. They are just buying their own bundles. They are going on TikTok and making money. KRA is coming after them.
I've been in parliament for 15 years. We have been unable to pass the gender law. And yet no presidential candidate is talking about it now. Because we are fake. The truth is, all the men refuse to vote for that law.
What did Sonko do to Pumwani maternity hospital?
Yeah, he
with
cleaned
his
it
own
up.
money.
Cleaned it with his own money. That was him as an individual.
Yeah. And I did not say he was cleaning his own money. I was saying he cleaned
Foot, mouth. Foot, mouth. Eric.
Okay.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Closer and closer to the end of the week, and what does it look like? Is traffic that started to build up on Lunga Lunga this morning, and we're seeing a little bit on Jogo Road, not at high proportions right now, at least. Landis, then out towards Kamkunji is where we'll see some traffic, and then coming onto Haile Selassie Avenue. There's some feeding traffic on from Gong Road, and it's touching on Haile Selassie this morning. What's happening on Thika Superhighway? Not much. A little bit on Moranga Road as you're getting into the city, and then a little bit here and there on Wangari Maathai Way. Nairobi Expressway, the exit coming out of Westlands, a little bit here and there, but nothing too crazy just yet. Looks like the streets are just waking up. We'll be here to let you know what it looks like. Hopefully we can keep things moving this morning. Talk to us. Twitter, SpiceFM, KE. It's Thursday.
SpiceFM, Malindi. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
The only way to
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your...
Good morning to you. It's 4 days to the general election. Imagine. Just like that. It's the 4th day of August 2022. How are you doing? Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. C.T. Muga. Habari yako?
Habari yangu mzuri sana. Wageni wakaribishwa Kenya yetu. Haina matata.
Kenya nchi nzuri.
Hakuna matata.
Ndu?
Yes?
Na wewe je?
Niko salama.
Wambaje?
Mimi niko fine, thank you.
You know, today I'm surprised. I thought Ndu was going to begin the day with that buzzy phrase that she had yesterday.
I tell you what it is. You know, you were surprised. You were thinking that things would not happen. Alafu, gafla.
See?
Yeah? Continue.
Gafla what?
Bin vu. There it is. You see now. Buzzy phrase. You know, there's actually a bird called a buzzard.
Yes, there is a
There's
buzzard.
a bird called a buzzard.
It's in the family of a hawk, a eagle.
Those guys.
Those guys, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those things, by the way, how do you tell them apart?
Hawk, eagle,
how do you tell
kite.
a mwewe from a mwewe?
I don't know what a mwewe is.
Eagle.
But in those, there's eagle, there's kite, there's hawk, and there's one other.
Buzzard.
So you just called
Buzzard. Thank you. I was like, huh? Yeah. A kite is smaller than a hawk. Hawk, of course, smaller than an eagle. And then you have the different species of eagle. But the eagle is the lion of them.
Ile kubwa katika hiyo bird.
Ile simba ya nini.
Yeah, your family.
Yeah. Simba ya nini ni eagle. The smaller ones are the kite. You see the ones when you're out having a barbecue and whatever, and they come and steal your meat. More often than not.
Those small eagles.
More often than not, they're kites. And you think they're hawks. But they're not.
Those ones are called crows. The ones
No. Crows have the white belly.
No, kuna zingine hazina white belly.
Hizo black
Mombasa,
Mombasa, those are called
Indian crows.
Oh, the name has just left me. There's a name for them. But they're not crows. Crows
So
have a white belly.
there's a difference between that eagle and the other eagle and that other big eagle
The
and the
biggest
smaller
one that has the
eagle.
wingspan of 6 feet is called the bald eagle.
Okay.
That one.
And
6 feet wingspan. Can you imagine a bird with 6 feet of wings?
Yes, I can imagine.
Majestic, isn't it?
So that's a big eagle.
That's
a
the great bald
Yeah,
eagle.
Eric,
bald.
that's a big wiggle.
So wiggle,
Eagle
wiggle,
Baba.
wiggle.
And then which eagle is a kite?
A kite
The
is
one
the
that
one you
eats.
see pretty often.
Is the
It's
eagle that's
brown? Is the eagle with brown feathers?
Small.
It's smaller than a hawk.
And then the hawk is which eagle?
The hawk is in between now. The
Medium-
kite is medium size.
Medium size.
The medium-sized eagle.
It's L. You know,
They
there's
need to be together for you to know which one is medium.
but you can actually see. You can actually see.
Na kuna ingine pia tumesahau. Inaitwa falcon.
Falcon.
The falcon now is the other eagle.
Yes.
It's actually called a falcon eagle. That's what it's called. Beautiful birds, though.
Mueve bana.
I have to remember the name of this bird in Mombasa, bana. The black one that's all over the place that makes noise. There's a name. There's a specific name. I'll find it and I'll tell you. It's not a crow. A crow has a white belly. I'll tell you.
And the pied crow is the one that has what?
The what?
Pied crow.
Pied who?
Pied crow.
What's that?
The one the white on the neck.
That one looks like he's wearing a white bow tie.
Oh, this name is just now has left me again.
Relax.
I'll find
When
it.
you relax, it'll come to you.
It doesn't matter.
It matters. It really does now.
It doesn't.
A bird is a bird is a bird.
All of them are eagles.
Kabisa. Crow eagle, falcon eagle, kite eagle.
As long as it's bigger than now that size, it's an eagle. If it's smaller, it's a bird.
Oh, sour.
Give it whatever name.
What's the smallest bird?
They say it's the hummingbird, but I think there's one smaller than it, if I'm not wrong.
Is there a wren smaller than a hummingbird?
No, a wren is bigger.
It's much bigger. Okay.
Hey, anyway. Welcome to the Birds and Eagles. Good morning. Welcome to the Situation Room. So, what conversations are we having today? Which guests are we going to get? Start.
From the beginning. Okay, so today we will be talking with NMS Director, Lieutenant General. Yes?
Yes.
Lieutenant General Badi.
That's a 3-star general.
Isn't it?
Yep.
He's done his thing. So he'll be with us and he'll give us a scorecard, or rather we'll be discussing the scorecard of the NMS with him. And so he'll be right here at 8 o'clock. So we'll have that conversation with him. And at 9 o'clock today, Facebook is being taken on for police election-related hate speech. And we will have Nema Mutemi with us in the studio today to talk about that. So there's a case. And there's been issues about hate speech related to the elections over time. But then I think there's some caution also that is being applied to these coming elections. But there's a case. Murder was the case. So, so that's going to happen at 9 o'clock today. And it is Justice Thursday. So at 7 o'clock, we'll be talking about enhancing accountability through performance management in the judiciary. And Honourable Justice Stephen Radido will be with us at 7 o'clock.
Okay. All that and more today. COVID.
Let's look at those numbers. We are looking at global numbers of 585,143,027. If we look at Kenya's numbers, 45 new cases from a sample size of 1,815 gives us a positivity rate of 2.5%, still under 5, so well done. It would be interesting to see the footprint of these cases and where they're from if they're related to travel because of the necessity of having those documents. We're still seeing a time where around the world countries are opening up their borders, allowing people to travel without the stringent requirements that had been applied previously, France, New Zealand, Australia, etc., etc. Remembering that we are looking at the summer months in the Northern Hemisphere and it is travel time, so a lot of people being allowed to travel without necessarily applying those restrictions. All right. There's a curious case of the COVID-19 rebound is what a lot of experts are looking into now and saying, you know what, people are coming out of COVID and then getting back and getting reinfected. And so they're asking themselves, why is it that this is happening at such a rapid rate? Dr. Ashish Jha, who is the White House COVID response coordinator, said clinical data shows the rate of rebound infections is low and noted that even those who suffer from them are still generally protected from serious illness. However, the infection is the question. That why do you see the multiple infection even though the severity of symptoms is low? And that why would somebody have long COVID, 45 days, 60 days, still testing positive? And so this is the mystery that they're trying to unravel.
Okay, 17 minutes after 6. Live streaming the show where we always live stream the show. This is YouTube and Facebook, SpiceFM KE and www.spicefm.co.ke. Are you online? Where are you tuning from this morning? Tell us. And after we take a look at the weather forecast, we will be doing our usual roll call. That's calling out everybody who's tuned in this morning. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day.
Yolanda Mulo and DJ Absolute. When the gang is together, you know it's
Sugar and Spice.
Great vibes, conversations, a lot of humor. I like to say we don't give an F, we give 3 Fs.
You and I are in this relationship, so it is me to tell you who we are.
When you ask a chick, how many guys have you been with? She's like, including you. If it's fun, it's funky, it's fresh, you're definitely going to catch it here. I don't know what you do every day from 11 a.m. to 3 o'clock. If I were you, I'd tune in to SpiceFM 94.4.
I want you on my team.
So does everybody else.
Yeah.
Tunapozidi kuboresha sekta ya kilimo, tunakumbatia mbinu bora za kiteknolojia. Kwa wakulima wote, Standard Group PLC kupitia Farm Kenya itaandaa siku ya maonyesho ya kilimo ikiwashirikisha washikadau wa sekta mbalimbali. Maonyesho hayo yatazingatia kumudu ukulima na ufugaji ili kuboresha maisha nchini Kenya. Jiunge nasi katika uwanja wa Dumberi Stadium, kaunti ya Kiambu kutoka tarehe 1 hadi 2 mwezi Septemba kuanzia saa 2 asubuhi. Kushiriki, wasiliana na Caroline kupitia 0723-803-601 au barua pepe cnyandieka@standardmedia.co.ke. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na Standard Group PLC na Farm Kenya.
Digger Classifieds is an all-in-one platform to find jobs, buy and sell motor vehicles or properties.
14 degrees cloudy conditions in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 19 today. 23 will be the high in a cloudy Nakuru, currently at 13. And it's also 13 in Nyeri. It's raining this morning. It'll go to highs of 17, 10 degrees and clear. Chilly morning in Eldoret, highs of 22. And we're looking at light rain in Mombasa at 23, highs of 27. 28 will be the high in Malindi, where the rain is coming down as well. Kisumu's cloudy at 17. We'll see highs of 27. 27 will also be the high in Kakamega, where the clouds are down at 15. It's 19 and mostly cloudy in Kampala, highs of 26. And we'll see highs of 29 in a mostly cloudy Dar es Salaam at 21. It's 8 degrees and cloudy in Johannesburg, highs of 18 and lows of 7 today, while Lagos is cloudy this morning at 24. It'll go to highs of 29. 31 will be the high in a clear Kinshasa, currently at 21. Looking out into Beijing, it's 34 and sunny going into Thursday afternoon. We'll see highs of 35 and lows of 26, while at 22 it's cloudy in Paris. We'll go to highs of 30 today and lows of 17. 24 will be the high in London, where it's currently cloudy at 20. And New York Wednesday night is 26 degrees, highs of 32, and 23 will be the low.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
20 minutes after 6. Good morning. How are you doing? People are online this morning.
Yes, they are. Quite a number of them. Good morning. Mukara says there's another bird called the harrier. Well, all right. Peter Njoroge says, good morning. Tuned in from Kiambu, waiting for inspiration from all of you. Very eager. Indeed, the African champion, now the Commonwealth champion. Kudos to you, Omanyala. That is for sure. Jeffrey Owoma says, good morning. Suleiman Pole says, good morning. Tuning from Likoni, Mombasa. Aren't the crows based in Mombasa called ravens? That's the word I was looking for. Yes, they are the black ravens. They are also known as crows, black crow. And the pied crow that you talked about, Eric, with the white collar, is also in Mombasa, different from the bigger size crow. Okay, so there's an avian morning.
Are crows edible?
Well, I don't know. Something eats them. That's for sure. Something eats them. I saw a documentary of some monkeys that had become carnivorous, eating bird. So, anywho, Reho Vidolo says good morning. Good morning, Spice, and that's Gordon Mugisha. He's tuning from Kampala. Says good morning. CK is tuned in from the twin cities of Minneapolis. So that's St. Paul and Minneapolis in Minnesota this morning. Good morning to you. Waterman is also in Minneapolis, so you want to, give each other a virtual high five. Michael Gital says, good morning. What a chilly morning. Looking forward to great conversation. It is quite chilly this morning, and if I'm saying it, it must be. A bunch of other people online this morning as well. Victor Polo says tuned in. Europe Kisumu, Washington Avenue, Baba Lane. That's exactly where Otieno is this morning. And Michael Gona says, good morning. Keep up the good work, Asante. Charles Ogato tuned in from Nyamira County. And from Kericho County, Titus Kip Courier says, good morning. Kimilili is well tuned in. And that's what Amos is. Good morning, Peter. Darlington Manasseh tuned in from Kawangware. And Shiro Brenda says, good morning, Amkeni Kumekucha. What does that mean? Good, Amkeni, wake up. What's the other one?
Kumekucha, daybreak.
Okay, voila. Martin one day says, good morning. Quite a number of people online. We see you, Morris. Indeed, it was 10 seconds, 10.2 seconds. That's what he ran in. Good morning from the team situation room. Omkiri, we see you as well. Good morning, good morning. Let's preach peace during the elections. Yes, definitely. Elections Bilanoma. Karibuni sana.
Yes, indeed. City, are we still in Congo Brazzaville?
We are still in Congo Brazzaville.
Okay.
Until tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes. Don't buy a boat that is underwater.
Don't buy a boat that is underwater.
That's the proverb. It is not a submarine. That is me saying.
I was going to say, man. But sometimes you need the one that can go underwater.
That one's called submarine. But he boat mashua, dao, meli, underwater.
Can't help you.
Iko shida.
In fact, if it's underwater, so probably are you.
In which case, since you're not a fish, you're also not really there.
Don't buy a boat that is underwater. Sawa. It's okay. It's okay. There are people who are collectors of such items. www.standardmedia.co.ke. Now, remember that you can get yourself subscribed to this particular portal and you get access to fantastic content. All the news content every day as it breaks, and then deeper and longer features. Audio, visual, text, photography. What fertility experts say about this issue? If you are past the age of 35, are you trying hard and there is no baby? So there's a feature on that in the papers today, and they're saying, well, if you'd like to know what they say, go there. You can find it, and then you can save it in your pocket, and there later you can access it even offline. Pocket by Mozilla. Download Pocket by Mozilla on Google Play Store and Apple App Store. Works best, of course, if they then have a Samsung mobile phone. Ndu? Okay, before we look at the headlines, let's talk about this man, Ferdinand Omanyala. Commonwealth champion. First time that Kenya is winning a medal in the 100 meters in 60 years.
At the Commonwealth Games.
Imagine. It was a fantastic thing to watch him.
Very uplifting.
Oh, yes.
Very
and
uplifting.
He beat them properly, like by a meter.
Now, you know, a meter is very long in a 100-meter
Yes.
dash. Yokitu, meter.
It's a long one. And it was fantastic. It was inspiring to see him just running the heats comfortably, running the semis comfortably, go to the final, and he still did it comfortably.
And
it was
remember,
slower than he has done before.
The man became a prophet. He had said, gold.
We are going for gold. That's why we're here. Imagine. Just like that. This is really, 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 really good. And just to think about a couple of weeks ago in Oregon, USA, where he had faced all these things and he still managed to get to the semifinals.
Indeed. I mean, the fella's really is in his element, and you can see that he glows in his element. And then one has to wonder that if all things had balanced properly, what would he then have been able to do in Eugene? And
He'd have won.
You can't run away from, the thought that, whether it was circumstance or deliberate action that sabotaged his race. Look, it's clear that there's something special about this guy. And I think he's got years on his running, and he'll probably do much, much greater things. And I think he's really, really striding well right now, and it's coming out for him.
Whatever happened in USA, they denied him. It denied him the opportunity to be the world champion, Commonwealth champion, African champion, Kenyan champion, simultaneously, because he definitely would have medaled in USA.
For sure.
Definitely.
For sure.
Congratulations, hearty congratulations to Ferdinand Omanyala. Very, very good thing to see. And of course, there are other athletes also participating in the Commonwealth Games.
That's true.
And Kenyan athletes who are bagging medals. It's a good thing to watch and to see what's happening there. For example, Simiu Kandie settled for silver and bronze in Birmingham. Daniel Simiu Kibiwot and Kibiwot Kandie bagged silver and bronze in the men's 10,000 meters, taking Kenya's medal count at the Commonwealth Games to 4 as Uganda's Jacob Kiplimo won the title. Kiplimo's win means the Ugandans have now won the last 5 editions of the event through Boniface Kiprop in 2006, Moses Kipsiro in 2010 and 2014, Joshua Cheptegei in 2018, with Kenya winning their last 20 years ago, courtesy of Wilberforce Talel. Imagine. So, today's schedule, there's athletics 12 to 4 p.m., women 200 meters round 1, men's 1,500 meters round 1, men's 200 meters round 1, 8:30 p.m. to 12 a.m., men 400 meters hurdle semifinals, and women's 800 meters semifinals as well. Kinyamalal cruises into final. Mora finishes last in 800 meters. Defending champion Wycliffe Kinyamalal making it through to the men's finals and running in heat 3. Kimanyalal finished second. Englishman Ben Partizon claimed the heat in 1:48. 1 minute 48 seconds. However, it was the end of the road for Cornelius Tuwei and Elias Nyeri. They were not able to proceed. Disappointment as Ongare bows out. Sad day for Kenyan boxing fraternity when their most favorite boxer at the ongoing Commonwealth Games, Christine Ongare's hopes of getting the medal bracket were dashed in Birmingham yesterday. Ongare lost the bout on a split points decision against Priyanka Dillon of Canada. The former flyweight bronze medalist, who started the match well, pushing her opponent to win the first round, later lost focus in the second and third rounds in favor of the Canadian. Sad for her. But a good thing that she was able to make it to the Commonwealth Games.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll be looking at the other headlines shortly. Let's then take a look quickly at traffic. What's happening on the roads? It's 8:30. This is 6. Did I say 8?
You did.
That's what I meant.
All right.
6:30 at 8 o'clock.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us, assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi Lokop is Jeshi Lawokop?
I can't say it very well. You know, you need to Jeshi Lokop.
And everyone knows.
All right, not looking too bad on the streets this morning. It looks like getting a slow starter onto wherever folks are going today, or they've already left. It's building up slowly on Jogo Road, and we also see a little bit here and there on the Thika Superhighway, but nothing alarming at the moment. Coming out of Westlands, it looks good, as it does. Coming out of the city, headed towards Westlands, and in the other direction. Not an issue coming off Mombasa Road, and we're seeing a little bit of action then heading towards Outer Ring. Manyanja feeding off to Outer Ring, and we also see Kangundo Road as well as Juja Road feeding off through to Outer Ring. We're not seeing an issue there at all. Likely to have a slow start towards traffic hour today, but we'll be here to see what's going on where you are. Let us know. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
So, while we're offering our congratulations to Omanyala, the CS in the Ministry of Education has offered his commiserations to the nation, specifically parents and children. And he has said, for you know, I'm sorry. He said, I am sorry. He has apologized for the abrupt closure of schools. Good showing, I would say, but came under pressure.
Has he explained?
Now, he has apologized to parents on behalf of the government over the abrupt early closure of schools across the country. His apology followed uproar from disgruntled parents who said the decision by the Ministry of Education caught them unprepared. Professor Magoha was speaking in Uasin Gishu County yesterday, and he said many schools will be used as polling centers, and the government wants the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to prepare well for the Tuesday polls. And he said, I quote, I know many parents were hurt by the abrupt closure of schools, and on behalf of the government, I apologize for that action. We were forced to close schools to enable IEBC to use our classrooms in readiness for next week's polls. Parents had faulted the ministry over the abrupt closure of schools, accusing top officials of poor planning. The National Parents Association noted that parents were caught unawares by the directive. Most of us learned about it through social media. Many parents had to quickly ensure their children got back home, according to Nicholas Mayo. As we speak, 3/4 of schools have closed. We have a few students still in schools due to challenges, and we urge principals to get in touch with their parents, he said from Eldoret. The association called on political leaders and other stakeholders to preach peace and unity, etc., etc. We also heard Magoha say that I would never do anything to deliberately jeopardize our children. The words he used were, I actually do love our children.
Oh, yeah. Like we said yesterday, something must have happened over the weekend. It was very uncharacteristic of the Education Ministry. They released their term calendars well in advance. You hardly get any variations just like that unless something major has happened. It's not the first time that elections are taking place. Well, many of the previous times, elections take place in December. And even those times that it has taken place in August, it's during school holidays.
Yeah.
This time, it has not coincided with the school holiday, but there was a plan for it to coincide with the half-term.
Yeah.
So there was plan.
There was a plan.
Something happened. And unfortunately, he's not even able to say this
What
is
exactly happened.
what took place. City, what are you looking at?
Hey, Aisuru.
Aisuru.
You know what?
Suru.
haizuru. One of the things that has characterized the financial sector in this country for the longest time, rather the continent, not this country, it's only now coming to the country, is how banks in the western part of this continent have grown and grown. And if you look at the history, it is, they formed, well, in political terms it would be a coalition, but they amalgamated. So many of these very many small banks became massive banks. So you actually find that in terms of banks and the financial might, West Africa has some really hefty, mighty banks. Okay? Now, Kenya seems to be following in their footsteps. Started off, and the two banks that seem to be doing this quite well, I would argue, are Equity and KCB. Okay? Now, the other day, and it's almost like a competition. One bank moves here, signs this, the other one moves here, signs the other. DRC seems to be the target here. Democratic Republic of Congo. Okay? Now, I am looking at yesterday's Business Daily, and I'm looking at what the KCB Group PLC chairman, gentleman by the name of Andrew Wambari Kairu, did. He was signing an agreement with a gentleman called Oliver Meisenberg, CEO of Trust Bank. This is a bank in DRC. So what am I seeing? I am seeing Kenyan banks beginning to grow and expand their wings in the region, becoming bigger and bigger players. I remember some years ago when I was doing some research work in Barara, in western Uganda. You know, you cannot imagine my surprise when I found a Nakumat there. I hadn't been to Barara before, to my surprise. Then my even bigger surprise was there was Equity Bank and KCB. And I looked and I said, goodness. Kampala, yes, but Barara is not really round the corner, not in real sense. So it looks like our commercial sector is set to get, should we say, intercontinental? Yes. Now, what I'd like to see is how if our banks can penetrate the West African market, because the West African banks have penetrated our market.
They have.
Yes. So,
I think we will see it happen over time. Over time, slowly by slowly. Among the things that are happening, of course, with Kenya being positioned as a financial hub for the region, but deliberate efforts by the government, is you see Kenya is among the countries that have been picked to pilot the Africa Free Continental Trade Area. So we already have a leg up in some of these things.
We do.
So it's first of all about just expanding and making sure that you are doing very well in the region, which makes a lot more sense. This 100 million, 200, 300 million markets in this region, and then now you can expand towards the south and towards the west.
It's very true. Because remember, we had the PS, the East African Community PS, and he explained it really well. And he also explained why it is DRC becomes important. And it's the population that DRC has. You look at those numbers and you add it to the existing numbers within East Africa, then it's a massive market.
Yep.
Yes.
And if you then look at expanding into DRC and then going into Ethiopia and making sure that you also have a foothold in Ethiopia and South Sudan, I mean, it's a huge
massive.
Huge market.
It's massive.
Huge market. If Kenyan companies are able to, Kenyan financial companies, then manufacturing companies are able to tap into those markets.
Yeah.
Big. So by the time you go into West Africa, you're massive.
You're already big.
You're not a small player coming into this huge market.
You're a big player.
You're a big player. It's a good thing.
It's a very good thing.
It's a very good thing. It is.
Remember, let me just add something here. We've had these discussions around subsidies, oil subsidies, this and the other subsidy. The one which has captured our imagination of late in the recent past is the maize subsidy.
Yes.
But that's not what I want to look at. Oil marketers are still owed money. And the amount of money that they are owed, 39 billion. Now, why this story interests me is the other day for the first time, we had an idea of how much money. Remember the levy that is supposed to go to the roads? It was 89 billion, remember?
Yes.
Yes. So I am thinking now, levies that are derived from these oil taxes, this, the other. It must amount to something, but we're never really told how much it is that is in the kitty. And yet, you're saying the government owes the oil marketers 39 billion? Now, the owing is so that the prices at the pump are kept stable.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, does it not strike you as this is a problem in the making?
This is a problem that has been there for a while. And when oil marketers started to protest, because they're heavily and highly regulated, the government just did what the government does. It reminded them that you are completely under regulation and we can
deal with you perpendicularly.
Sacafoniously. So, you know, imagine what this, the impact of this. So, all marketing companies are still required to participate in the OTS.
Yes,
they are participating in the OTS. Mm-hmm. They are still required to offtake petroleum product from the depots straight to the market.
Yes.
They are required to sell the local market share. 60% of all the oil in the depots should be sold domestically. 40% export. Sell all that 60% domestically, and then you're not getting the margin that you should be receiving. Because it's the entire margin. It's your profit and operating margin. So your operating margin is being held by the government and you're expected to still sell next month.
Yes.
Worst bit is especially those that are participating in the OTS that are going to import. They need dollars to purchase the product abroad. There's no access to the dollars in the market. The dollar is, the OTS is basically fixing the dollar according to the central bank rate. If the central bank rate is 105, the market rate is 120. You have to go and buy the dollar at 120 and you have bid to import at 105.
You're trading at a loss.
You're trading at a loss.
You are,
and you must participate in this.
And the thing is that all of this is also dependent on volumes. You're not going to be able to trade on the international market and say, well, all right, since this is the price that we're looking at and the dollar has forced me to spend more shilling, then can I get a reduction in the amount of oil that I will bring in? You can't do that. That there's a minimum amount that you have to import to play at that level.
Yep.
So
does someone understand this logic? I find this logic escapes me.
It's a bad thing. The oil marketing companies, the players in
shafted.
They are talking about it, you know, of course, in harsh tones, but they are really, really suffering.
They're being throttled. I mean, there's no two ways of looking at it. But the question is why?
And you wonder. One of the reasons why the government has said we must heavily regulate the energy sector is because energy is a national security issue.
It is a national security issue.
And it is a national. Now, then you go ahead and do this.
Then why don't you behave as though it's a national security issue? Why don't you make it more comfortable for your partners in that particular industry to be able to secure the security that you speak of? Because if people are paid on time, there is no war. There'll be no issue. 39 billion shillings is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
And yet, this is the fuel that, figuratively speaking, drives the economy.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
It's crazy. IGAD, Kenyan workers working at IGAD have written a protest letter to our Foreign Affairs PS.
What's wrong?
He's Ambassador who? Macharia Kamau, right? The Kenyan employees argue that despite Kenya making an outstanding contribution to support the IGAD Secretariat, the current leadership has made decisions that have negatively affected Kenyan workers at the organization. This is what they say. As one of the biggest IGAD stakeholders, Kenya government must, as a matter of urgency, demand the audit to establish IGAD staff recruited from January 2020 to date. This is according to their letter. The letter is copied to the head of public service, Joseph Kenyua, and the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection. They argue that most of the staff recruited and the organization since 2020 have not followed the laid-down IGAD recruitment procedures, which includes advertisement, shortlisting, competitive recruitment, and contracting. 6 Kenyans working for IGAD have had their contracts terminated in an unclear circumstance and without the laid-down procedure being followed. In the letter, the Kenyans say the letters of termination have been signed by a person who has no mandate to do so because all contracts are signed by the executive secretary. The targeted staff feel that the termination are part of a wider scheme targeting Kenyan staff working for IGAD and not as a result of the budgetary constraints as highlighted in the letter of termination. Are you seeing what we are saying? Various governments form IGAD.
They do.
There's an IGAD secretariat.
There is.
Currently, the head of the IGAD secretariat is not a Kenyan.
Yes.
The leadership is not Kenyan. Now, the Kenyans are feeling that they are being elbowed out, and other nationalities are getting jobs since 2020. Unfairly and procedurally.
Perhaps we could take this discussion and go a little back into history. Is there an understanding as to the percentages of representative nationals in this particular organization who should actually be in this secretariat? Is there such an understanding? Or is it one of these situations where they say you bid competitively and they are it's a meritocracy? What is it?
So the IGAD Charter doesn't necessarily prescribe that countries who are member states then of IGAD, that this is the percentage, that each country will get 16%, 17% in terms of how we will employ you. The general understanding or gentleman's agreement in the charter, that the charter then bids, as it were, is that there will be equal representation amongst the member countries. It is an unsaid thing.
That is a recipe for a problem.
Isn't it just?
Oh, yes, it
right.
is.
It's an unsaid thing.
That one.
But that is the general understanding. Now, clearly, with this issue, the general understanding has then been gone against.
You know, we Kenyans, we're a pushy lot. And we're highly competitive. And the things that the Kenyans are complaining about, Kenyans get a foot in. You blink, the entire body is in. Yes, it's the way Kenyans do their things. Yes. And they expect you to understand that when they put their foot in, you put your elbow in. They understand and they ask you.
Let's jostle this thing.
You saw me putting my foot in. What were you doing? Why are you standing watching me? Why didn't you just follow through? So, again, one needs to ask, how many Kenyans were there in this IGAD secretariat? Because sometimes somebody comes in and they think, the very thing that I'm trying to suggest here, let's balance this thing out a little bit. Right?
So this is like some natural attrition.
I am saying it is a possibility. And someone feels, no. I got this job because I qualified for it.
Come too many, so we remove you.
Then go follow procedure.
Yeah.
Yes.
The point is follow procedure. But also, if you look at all these continental bodies, there's IGAD, there's the EAC, there's the AU, there's the others. There's always that complaint.
There is.
And not about Kenyans, but I have heard it even with the UN agencies. It's the skew in terms of who's at the helm. If this person is an East African, then East Africans are going to have...
Oh, that is said very loudly.
If it's a West African, as is often with these
international bodies,
Pan-African bodies,
they'll say,
you'll find there are very many West Africans. Whether they're Nigerians from
Ghana,
go all the way into Ghana, into Senegal, and Cameroon, and then blah, blah, you'll find.
And then if you want to get granular, you'll find there is an Anglophile, Francophile discussion.
Absolutely.
Yes,
There
is clear.
That is very clear.
Yeah.
That is very, very clear.
Then you look at some of the organizations and you feel there's this particular country who have a rather large representation here. And if you go down, you'll find that representation. But it's a discussion we've had even locally. And people make these large assumptions that, there are these groups. Then you do the audit and you find it's not quite what you thought. Not quite. And then again, does it not play also the same thing? You find, look at the helm and you realize, sometimes look at the helm doesn't tell you the whole story. You need to go back into history. Okay? Like, for instance, in the early days, when President Daniel Arap Moi was president, you will find, for instance, if there was a minister for water, rest assured, water meter readers would come from his neck of the woods. Rest assured, don't even think about it. If someone was Minister for Defense, just sit back and watch. Believe me, their tribesmen will be brought in by the lorry load. So we've seen it happen here. So when Kenyans are complaining, we may not say it loudly, but it's something that we've seen playing out even locally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. You know, once they start picking you out one by one.
Yes. You notice, and you know here,
Because-
we're being picked on.
Yes. Yes.
Because in all the times we've had Kenyans in the system, they've never complained. If they're complaining, there must be something they're complaining about.
Indeed.
Yes.
All right. Well, somebody's not too happy and they decided that they're going to take Deputy Presidential running mate Gachagua to court. And he's been sued as petitioners ask the court to interpret the integrity law. Not enforce it, interpret it. Mathira MP Rigathi Gachagua has been sued in a constitutional case seeking an interpretation on the application of ethics and integrity. At the heart of the case filed before High Court's Justice Tande Mugure, it is whether persons who are before a court facing criminal charges or have unresolved integrity questions should be cleared to vie or locked out until their cases are settled. It's not the first time that we started having this conversation, right? But then somebody has said, we're bringing it before the court. Besides Rigathi, who is the UDA deputy presidential candidate, Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja, Sirisia MP John Waluke, Nakuru West MP Samuel Arama, and Marsabit Governor Mohammed Ali Mohammed have also been sued. Others are Tharaka Nithi Governor Muthomi Njuki, former Nairobi Governor Evans Kidero, Garissa Governor Ali Bunau, Tana River Governor Godana Labo, Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru, and Malindi MP Aisha Jumwa, Kapsaret MP Oscar Sudi, Larry's John Amboro, and Migori Governor Zachary Obado. Did you know his name was Zachary?
I did.
All right. They have also sued United Democratic Alliance and Attorney General Kihara Karaoke. So they've sued UD as a party, and they've also sued the Attorney General. On Gachagua, the court is being asked to determine if he qualifies to be on the ballot as UDA presidential candidate William Ruto's running mate after an anti-corruption court ordered him to forfeit 200 million shillings to government as their proceeds of graft. Gachagua has since filed a notice to appeal the verdict by Justice Esther Maina. He is also before a magistrate's court facing criminal charges. Sakaja is in court battling an allegation that does not have a university degree after the Commission of University Education revoked the recognition of the one he submitted to the IEBC from Team University. According to Kibe, EACC recommended to the Director of Public Prosecutions, Nuruddin Haji, to charge Ali and Waigoro. At the same time, Njuki Sudi and Obado are all before the court charged with different offences. My goodness. Jumwa's academic papers were also questioned, but the case was dismissed by the court. The petitioners have also raised the same issue. According to Andrew Kiba, who's the lawyer, he has said, since the said 2013 eligibility judgment was delivered, courts have repeated but erroneously interpreted Articles 75, 99 and 193, with the result that Chapter 6 of the Constitution is on the verge of becoming false prospectus full of hollow platitudes. So they're saying, take all of these people with the things that have been thrown at them legally and interpret this law for us. If you interpret it in this manner, showing then that such things then should not be allowed as people sitting in office, then they should not be allowed to run for elective positions.
You know, this thing in my mind doesn't stop anyone from actually participating in the elections.
The one for Tuesday?
No, it
Oh,
doesn't.
no.
It doesn't. This one is targeting after the elections.
Yes.
And he's saying, okay, get it and then see what happens to you.
So let me just tell you the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points really quickly. They're saying petitioners want the court to interpret the law in ethics and integrity. They argue that the IEBC has failed to uphold the law by clearing persons who have either criminal cases in court whose integrity has been questioned and others convicted. They want the court to set aside a judgment that allowed President Uhuru and his deputy to vie despite being at the ICC. They argue that there's a need to determine whether Rigathi can hold office after the High Court ordered him to forfeit this 200 million. They're also seeking orders to block him to assume office if Ruto and he are elected. And finally, Justice Tande directed them to serve the other parties and appear in court on the 5th, which is tomorrow.
Maybe we'll ask the judge when he comes. Must the court always wait for someone to come and request?
Or petition?
A petition?
Yeah.
Or can the judiciary, particularly the Supreme Court, pick out an issue and say there's public interest on a particular matter and there's a lot of public discussion and conversation around the interpretation of Chapter 6 of the Constitution we are seizing ourselves of this matter. We are declaring ourselves that we have got competence
And there's just
and
cause.
jurisdiction, and there's just cause for us to discuss this matter. And so we are retreating to our chambers as the 7 judges of the Supreme Court. We shall tell you the proper interpretation of this, because I think that we need the Supreme Court to just come and interpret this. Just let's not even begin at
let them lay down the law so that you know this is it.
Blah 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 blah.
I mean,
This
can
is
the
a big
court,
matter.
can the judiciary actually lay down the law?
They can.
Can they?
They can.
I mean, I think
Just go all the way to the
do
apex
it.
court and
They
say,
can.
this matter of Chapter 6, there has been so much public discussion around it. Very many cases coming before, very many applications coming to the lower courts. We are taking it all up. We've got jurisdiction. We shall give you a final verdict on this.
And after all, that is the court that supposed to determine such matters with any degree of finality.
Yes.
So instead of dilly-dallying here, take it there, let it be done once and for all, done, dusted.
Remove.
Yes, exactly.
Surely.
But you know,
Surely.
what is also of interest,
Eh.
if you look at this thing, these last 4 days for the election, things are going to come up. One can see the tempo just beginning to rise. Increase, rise,
Yes.
rise. I will not be surprised if you even hear some people have been arrested.
Oh, yes.
That's not.
Oh, yes. What's the headline in the nation? Now
The
that we
headline
talk
in the
about that?
nation, playing dirty as back-to-back campaigns hot up because we're looking at serious things going on. Look at the 31st of July, Kapsabet, Nandi County, Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County is where the Azimio team will be. Aldai, Nandi County, Hamisi, Vihiga County, Kitale, Trans Nzoia, Kakamega outside Buhungu is where the UDA team will be. Kerugoya, Kirinyaga on the 1st for Azimio. Eldama Ravine for Kenya Kwanza. 2nd of August, Narumoro, Karatina, Nyeri County for Kenya Kwanza. Budalangi, Busia on the same date for Azimio. I mean, it goes on and on until the 6th of August. But there's a lot of playing dirty that's going on. Social media, presidential candidates and other aspirants unleash bloggers to, start smear campaigns. There have been personal attacks. Campaigns have thrown manifestos to the wind and resorted to personal attacks against opponents. There's a lot of fear-mongering. Calls for voter turnouts have turned to either scaremongering to get competitors not to vote or hate-mongering to push those in support. President's duo, Uhuru Kenyatta, who backs frontrunner Raila Odinga for the top job, is caught up in a wrestling match with Ruto that has gone to the dogs. Skeletons in closets. Ruto and Raila are upping the ante in the 4 days to the elections, with each calling out the other for past sins and historical mischief. And it's dramatically raising political temperatures.
So it's getting the down and dirty.
Yes, it is.
It's now just stoking the emotions of your supporters and getting them out to vote. It's either you show them, you know what, you may think that we are safe, but we are not safe. If you don't come out to vote, those other guys could do this thing. Or come out to vote so that we defend what we've been gaining. It's a last-minute push.
It is.
And it just gets to that point.
It all ends in Nairobi on the 6th of August. We're looking at these two. One side will be at Kasarani and the other side will be at Nyayo Stadium on Saturday. And it's likely to be hot.
Saturday is the last day?
It's the last day for campaigns, yes.
So who's going to be in Kasarani?
Kasarani, the Azimio team will be at Kasarani and the Kenya Kwanza team will be at Nyayo Stadium, same day.
Okay.
So that whole debacle of, bookings for concert, blah, blah, was sorted out.
Let them behave. It's okay. Just have your rallies. It's fine.
Yeah.
Let the supporters come. Let them enjoy. Let them listen to you. It's fine.
Then let everybody go home.
Let the media broadcast split screen. It's fine. We shall go home. On Tuesday, Minu Nambichi. Good morning, 7 a.m.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 SpiceFM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Presidential ballot papers will be distributed across the country starting tomorrow, and the exercise will be completed by Saturday. IBC Commissioner Francis Wanderi says they received the last batch of the papers yesterday evening and their returning officers are ready to receive them.
As we are talking today, 90% of non-strategic materials, that is ballot boxes and all those other materials, have already been distributed to the various constituencies in the country. So as of now, we have not distributed any presidential ballot papers.
He, however, adds that most governor, senator, woman representative, MP and MCA ballot papers have already been distributed across counties.
364 pallets of governors' ballot papers at the constituencies. We have distributed 368 pallets of senator ballot papers. The women rep, we have distributed 410. Member of Parliament, 439 pallets. County Assembly member, 472. The total number of pallets distributed so far is 2,053.
He further states that they'll have to airlift ballot papers to Wajir, Garissa, Mandera, Turkana and Lamu counties due to insecurity concerns.
These materials are being escorted by security, and when they get to the warehouse, they are also guarded 24 hours by security. So these areas is whereby it may be difficult going by road because of the security situation in that area to deliver the materials by road. That is why we have opted for that kind of a facility.
Revisiting the death of former IBC ICT officer Chris Musando 5 years later, Interior PS Karanja Kibicho says murder cases in the country may take time, but Musando's family will get justice. The late Musando died on July 28, 2017, a day after he was reported missing. He was found at Muguga Forest alongside Karel Ngumi, a 21-year-old college student who was last seen with him.
We don't have a timeline to close files on criminal activities like those. And you must agree with me, some of these do not take, it's not an on-off situation because you require to do deep investigations. DCI has been at it, and I think it's only fair to allow them to continue. We've seen murder cases in this country take some time, even 5 years, even 10 years, but eventually they come to conclude. And I believe the case of Musando will be the same one day.
The High Court will today make a ruling on whether IBC will rely on KEMS kits as the only mode of voter identification in next week's general elections. Several lobby groups have challenged the decision of the Commission to use KEMS kit. In a petition filed in court, the 7 lobby groups want the court to order IBC to provide a manual register of voters in every polling station. They argue that the decision made by the Commission and its chair Wafula Chebukati is not only in violation of the statute but also susceptible to massive failure, which can lead to the ultimate postponement of the general election. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights says 5 people have so far died in election campaigns. Commission Chairperson Roslyn Odede has called for the deployment of security by the IG Hilary Mutyambai to ensure human rights are not violated before, during and after the election.
The Commission has since February 2022 documented 5 cases of election-related deaths. 2 of these were as a result of road accidents involving vehicles associated with aspirants, while 3 others died from injuries allegedly inflicted by opposing political factions. This is indeed regrettable, since every life matters, and this is a pointer for a deliberate action by law enforcement officers and security agencies to be more alert and ensure the right to life is protected.
And finally, African 100-meter champion Ferdinand Omanyala won Kenya's first gold medal in the ongoing Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. Omanyala clocked 10 minutes 2 seconds under windy situation to become the first Kenyan since Serafin Antao in the 1960s. Omanyala says his fans encouraged him to win the race.
I was feeling very nice when I started the Commonwealth Games, and I knew I'm going to have it. So not putting pressure on myself, coming out, enjoying the game and having fun and delivering the goal. It's all about controlling the race from the start. I'm glad that I got a good start and I was in front, I think, for the rest of the 100 meters. So.
That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
All right, a few minutes after 7 o'clock, and it looks like it's building up in certain parts. We're looking at Jogger Road, already looking quite crazy. Inbound traffic is bumper to bumper as you're heading out towards Landis and then through to the Kamkunji roundabouts. Haile Selassie, that started early. And we're not looking at anything major coming off Mombasa Road. Traffic seems to be flowing quite smoothly. Langata Road a little bit here and there as you're getting to the interchange at Timor. Into the CBD from the thicker superhighways, also building up traffic now just at that Pangani underpass. They're going to meet with Muthaiga Square for traffic that's coming off of Kiambu Road. Are you coming out of Westlands? Not too much of an issue. James Gishuru looks good. Ring Road Westlands looks all right. As you're heading out towards Wangari Maathai, you should be okay. Traffic hour in about half hour or so is when it's going to pick up. Let's be here to see what's going on. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Let's keep things moving this Thursday.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in
7
punching...
minutes after 7. Good morning, and how are you doing if you're just starting your day? Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. It's on SpiceFM. It's also on SpiceFM KE on YouTube, SpiceFM KE on Facebook. And Collins Odundo is asking, hii SpiceFM inakuanga TV ama radio? Mbona tunawaona? Tunakuanga kila kitu bwana. Hata live. Yes. So it's the first and only audio-visual radio experience. From wherever you are, you can watch us, you can listen to us, you can engage with us when we come down to the ground. We have a guest in the studio. It's Thursday, #Justice Thursdays. Before we introduce the guest and welcome him to the show, let's hear the day's proverb. C.T. Muga.
Our proverb is from Congo Brazzaville, not DRC. Last week our proverbs were from DRC. Don't buy a boat that is underwater.
Don't buy a boat that is underwater.
Boats by their nature are supposed to float on water. So if that boat is underwater, it tells you that it's actually stopped being a boat, it's something else. And it's not a submarine. Yes.
Especially if you want to use it, if you want to buy the boat to use it for what boats are used for, don't buy it.
No, don't.
If you want to buy it to, you're creating a museum, it's okay. If you want the wood to use for something else, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. But for a boat, no, don't. The Honorable Justice Stephen Radido is a judge of the Employment and Labor Relations Court, but is also a member of the Administration of Justice and Performance Management Committee of the Judiciary. He joins us now in the Situation Room. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning, Eric.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
I hope it's not very hot.
No, we want it to be hot enough for you. I mean, it's cold out there. Judge, you and City look alike. Mnajuana?
I think we should do a DNA ancestry test.
This is the point where you ask him, so, Justice, kwenu ni wapi?
Names start to pop up. Yes.
We might find we are all Eastern Bantus.
Yes.
Some relation somewhere.
Yes.
Judge, this man has been taking campaign money from well-wishers. People who approach him thinking he's a presidential candidate.
We support you, Shika.
And he knows because nikipata na walektea pia.
Sisi tunakula hapa.
Our bellies have been full.
But in all honesty, I've been shocked at the number of people who actually stop me to take selfies. I take the selfies and ask, why are you taking a selfie with me?
Even you just agree your picture to be taken. Then later is when you ask questions.
You know, you take the selfie, then you say, are you not Wajakoya? Say, I'm not Wajakoya. And then you look at social media platforms, somebody has posted a picture of you. So I guess Wajakoya has a high level of popularity among young people.
I've been mobbed in the streets of Kisumu. On the assumption that I'm related to Wajakoya.
Bas. And no one has given you contributions?
Not yet. Time has run out.
Pole. Yeah. Pole. But thank you very much for joining us, Judge. We'll talk about the Administration of Justice and Performance Management Committee, and especially enhancing accountability through performance management in the judiciary. But first, tell us about the Employment and Labor Relations Court. This is a superior court, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And what does it handle mainly?
The Employment and Labor Relations Court, the current one, was established in 2012. Mm-hmm. Previously, we had what was called the Industrial Court, which was a subordinate court. Mm. The Industrial Court was dealing with trade union labor movement issues. Mm. But now the Employment and Labor Relations Court, after being elevated to the status of a high court, deals with employment issues in general, trade unions in general, and apart from the employment cases, we also deal with constitutional cases which have an employment underpinning. Which means that we can determine constitutional issues as far as they relate to employment.
Okay.
Yes.
I can imagine that this is one of the courts now that has very many matters that are lodged into it on a daily basis. The other day we were speaking to a judge of the London Environment Court, and he was telling us, when you talk about land and environment matters, we are inundated with cases that are lodged here. Same thing happens with the Employment and Labor Relations Court, I'd presume.
Yes, because basically everybody is an employer or an employee, and disputes are bound to arise in the course of that relationship. When those disputes arise, of course, those who feel that their rights have been infringed would come to the court. So we have many cases, we have backlog, just like the other courts.
Okay.
Yes.
So now let's talk about the Committee on Administration of Justice and Performance Management. What's that?
This committee is a committee of the Judicial Service Commission. You know, the mandate of the Judicial Service Commission is, one of them is to ensure that there is independence of the judiciary and that there is accountability. So this committee helps the Judicial Service Commission in attainment of that objective. Some of the objectives which we have is access to justice, and I believe all of that are aware that access to justice is one of the fundamental objectives of the judiciary. Performance are those who have been employed performing. So those are some of the objectives.
You know, one of the things about our justice system, historically, it has been, well, should we say, one of these destinations that people are in awe of. That's to put it mildly. In real terms, people fear the judiciary. But in the recent past, what we've observed is that the judiciary has acquired a friendlier face in that they have taken the path of communicating with the general public so the public knows what it is that they do. Now, that as a background, the question that I'm actually glad you're here because it's something that has always puzzled me. Anecdotally, it is said that any labor-related issue that pits an employer and an employee is more likely to go on the side of the employee as opposed to the employer. Is there any truth to this particular statement?
Yes, there's truth to that statement, because if you look at the laws which regulate this relationship, they are to protect
the employee,
the rights of the employee. Okay. You look at the Employment Act, it's to define and set the fundamental rights of the employee. In many instances, it is the employee who's got the low bargaining power at the receiving end. So when they come to court, obviously the court will likely find in their favor. The employers rarely come to court. Very rare. It's very rare to find an employer who has come to court.
What are things that are taken into consideration then? Should an employee come to court and then, seek either compensation for certain grievances? What are some of the things that are taken into consideration? Because anybody could get up one day and say, because I know then that likely my rights will be upheld by court, I could almost come with anything and then my rights would be, protected. What are some of the things that are considered when, a variety of cases come?
First of all, you must establish that you are an employee. If you're not an employee, the court will say we don't have jurisdiction. You must establish that I am an employee. After you've established that I'm an employee, you have to establish what rights or contractual obligations have been breached by the employer. You lead your evidence. The employer will lead their evidence. After that, the court will analyze, and in appropriate cases, we will award you what is due to you. If it's reinstatement, we will reinstate you. If it's the compensation, we'll award you the compensation.
Justice, who is an employee?
An employee is a person who has been contracted to provide personal services. So it's a contract of service, not a contract for service.
Could you differentiate the two?
A contract for service is, for example, you engage a fundi to build your house. That's a contract for service. He's an independent guy. He's working under his own supervision, very minimal supervision from your side. But a contract of service, you will find that you are under the control of the employer. You are told how to work. You have rights like leave. You pay statutory duties. You have house allowance, such type of things.
I see. So a consultant, a contract is a contract
for services.
For service. Umeona sasa?
Nimeona vizuri sana.
Yes. Huwezi enda kotini.
You can still go to court. You can still go to court. You can still go to court, but a different court, the High Court, because you are not an employee.
Okay. Last year, we hosted your chair, the chair of your committee, on Administration of Justice and Performance Management, the Honorable Lady Justice Agnes Mulgo. And we spoke about, a number of things that the committee has been doing, looking back into why do you have to have performance contracting in the judiciary? I mean, and what does that mean? Are you saying that a judge then is told you must listen to 5 cases per day, and you must fine people to the tune of, you must bring in 100 million, you're going to target a fine? For purposes of just getting that clarity, what does performance management mean? Are you putting people in the judiciary under performance contracts?
Thank you. I'll start with the why question. Judicial power is a delegated power. Our constitution talks of sovereign power belongs to the people.
Yeah, to CC.
So part of the sovereign power which is delegated is the judicial authority. Now, that judicial authority being exercised on behalf of the people, our national values require us to be accountable to the people. There is no way we will be accountable to the people if we don't demonstrate what we do, how we do it, what are the outcomes of that we are doing. So that would be the why question. The Constitution demands that the judiciary be accountable. Now, what are some of what then would be the things we would do to be accountable, and what would be the outcomes? Number one, you cannot be accountable if you don't measure what you are doing. They tell us that what gets measured gets done.
Yes.
So for us to be effective and efficient, we must place everybody on that performance evaluation system to enhance efficiency and effectiveness. We also need to do it so that we create uniform standards, so that we know that the court in Busia is doing as much as the court in Miwani or the court in Mandera. We need uniform standards, minimum uniform standards, to ensure that everybody is doing their little bit. Otherwise, we would be having joy riders. Just like in any organization, you'll have those who will talk nicely, sweetly, but they do very little. Yeah, they are there. So apart from that, we need to create a platform which can assist the leadership of the judiciary in planning and decision-making. Of course, for promotion and rising up, if you don't know who is doing what where, what criteria will you use to assess them? All right? Yes. Apart from that, we need to create universal standards so that everybody knows that I joined this organization, this is what I'm going to do.
I'm waiting for the word target.
That is now on the how. How it is done. First, we have to collect data. And that data is generated by the users themselves. If it's a judicial officer, you provide the data yourself every day. If it's the judge must generate that data and feed it into a platform, and it's sent to a central place. After the data has been collected, it is analyzed, it is monitored, it's evaluated. At that stage, we have a team which comprises the committee you are asking about, which will go to the field, meet with the individual judge or judicial officer or court station, and interrogate the data. After the data has been interrogated, now we have what is called negotiations. We'll tell you this is where you are in terms of the workload in this station. This is your data which you gave us. Now we want to agree with you setting targets. Now, in terms of setting targets, the judiciary or the leadership will not impose on you. It's negotiated. Okay. You tell us how much you can do. But we have minimum standards. There are minimum standards across the country. But the negotiations on those targets, it is between the committee member who is gone to that court station or region and the court station or the head of the court station. They are negotiated.
Okay. So now, if we look around the country, unfortunately, and I know that things have definitely been spreading around, but normally the center is Nairobi, or a lot of the attention then is put on what courts are able to do in Nairobi. Is the work that's being done by the employment and court then spread around the country, that people don't have to leave their point to come to the capital to be able to have things sorted? How does that look like then in the spread of operations?
Thank you. That's a question of access to justice. The court has 21 judges spread in 9 court stations. That's Nairobi, Mombasa, Malindi, Nakuru, Kericho, Eldoret, Nyeri, and Kisumu. So far, that's the situation where we are now, which means that you have to access the court which is nearest to you. I know that it's not yet an optimal level because of the number of judges, but I think the distances which the parties which require our services need to travel now are not as much as it was in 2012. Because in 2012, the court was concentrated in Nairobi, Mombasa, Nyeri, and Nakuru. At least there's been a spread. Now we are in 9 court stations. I believe there are 8 sub-registries in Garissa, Machakos, Embu, Kitale, Voi, and Kisii.
What's the rationale that is used in determining these particular centers?
We go back to why we need to collect data.
Yes.
Once the data is collected, we know the caseload for each particular region. Once we know the caseload statistics for that particular region, the leadership can use that to determine that, that station requires an extra hand. That station requires another judge. All right.
Mixed
But
products.
the good thing, going back to your question, is in 2016, the Chief Justice designated all senior resident magistrates in the country as adjudicators for employment and labor relations disputes. So apart from the 9 court stations, any senior resident magistrates courts
Could handle
issues, but up to a certain level.
Would they fall under the ambit then of the employment court, or would it be that said senior magistrate was adjudicating a case that happened to fall under this category, or would it be that it was under the court itself?
They are under the supervision of the Employment and Labor Relations Court within that region.
Okay.
But they are limited to where the monthly salary is 80,000 shillings. If you're earning 80,000 shillings and below, your first port of call is the magistrate's court. You don't come to the Employment and Labor Relations Court direct.
Okay.
So you can only access the court in that instance on appeal. Yes.
Okay. So we've established already that more often than not it would be the employee who seems to be on the longer end of the stick when it comes to the adjudication of these cases. What kinds of issues do we see being brought forth? I guess there's a plethora of them, but what kinds of issues are people then able to bring to court? I think for information purposes, to know that this kind of dispute that you may currently be going through, then you fall into the category of those who would be able to bring their issues to court.
The majority of cases, I would say maybe 90%, relate to unfair terminations or dismissals. Then the other 10% are breach of contract. You are underpaying me. We have prescribed minimum wages. You are not giving me my annual leave. You are not increasing my salary. But 90% are dismissals.
Okay.
Yes.
We've also seen some cases recently. I think this year, there are 3 that stand out of individuals who have been injured in the line of duty, maimed, unfortunately, died, or then significantly handicapped as a result of the work they were doing. Would this fall under the employment court?
Your first port of call when you are injured in the course of work is the Director of Occupational Safety and Health. And that's like a no liability. It's a strict liability scenario. You are injured in the course of work. The director will assess the level of injury and award compensation. It's only when one of the parties is not satisfied with the award by the director that they will come to court.
Okay.
Yes.
But they do come to your court?
They do come to court.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's a prescribed and laid down, for instance, in the case of injury, there is a laid down process and procedure on how to award the outcomes of an injury.
Yes, there is.
For instance, if I lose an arm,
yes,
there's a certain amount, a minimum and a maximum.
Yes.
If I lose a nose.
Yes. There is. It's all set out in the Work Injury Benefits Act.
And it covers every part of the body?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to know.
It's 29 minutes after 7. Let's take a quick break. Take a look at the weather and traffic. Justice Stephen Radido is a judge of the Employment and Labor Relations Court. He's also a member of the Administration of Justice and Performance Management Committee of the Judicial Service Commission. We are talking about enhancing accountability through the performance management in the judiciary and also seeking to understand a lot of the issues, of course, on the Employment and Labor Relations Court. There are very many cases that are filed there by employees mostly. And sometimes you're an employer and you find yourself heading there. Or you're an employee and you need to know, okay, in what instances should I be going to the honorable judge or his colleagues? Let's take that quick break. Judge, I see you have a mobile phone. It's a smartphone. You know, a couple of centuries ago, when you people were young,
smoke and drums.
Modes of communication were smokes and drums.
Yeah, in an earlier time.
In an earlier time, and pigeons. And then you started now using other communication devices, such as telegram,
yes,
telex, fax.
Yes.
And then when you needed to start documenting things that were happening.
Like you later had the phone booth.
Phone booth came in later. The phone that could that had to, the dial one that you could lock that was locked, so you could not just access it. And when you needed to document things like taking photos and videos, you forget about it. Photos. And so you had this one photographer in the entire district.
Yes.
Who you either go to their studio in the big town. So you come from wherever you're coming from, you go to the main town, so that you go to the studio. So the photo is taken. And then you find a couple of weeks later, so you can come and collect your photos. And if you want them to be enlarged and put in an album, you also pay an extra for enlargement and putting in. You remember those days?
In our place, they would go to Kisumu to wash or clean.
Wash.
Washing the picture.
Yes.
And then you're given all the photo. Yes. The unfortunate bit would be if actually a couple of days later you go after you picha yangu imeoshwa, then the photoman tells you ilichomeka. Ilichomeka meant
it was exposed.
It was overexposed. Yes. So you have no photos.
Yeah, the sun was too much.
So you have to start arranging for another photo to be taken.
Now, and those photos used to be taken either during Pasaka, Easter, or in December.
That's it.
It's Christmas. And you have to wear clothes for.
Yes.
And it's an entire. You can't take a kila mtu picha yake. It's all of you sit together, and there's a way you sit. And baba amekaa hapa, mama amekaa hapa, mama ameshika ule mtoto mdogo. And you arrange yourselves in ascending order.
The children always had shiny faces.
But of course, you've just
because
showered.
It was a happy occasion.
And full of hustling.
Yes.
Times have changed, Judge.
Yeah,
now you have photos on your phone.
Yes, we do.
We are going to take photos at the end of this interview, and you'll be,
when I'm next to him.
When you're next to
yeah, exactly.
next to your brother. So when you meet your siblings, you'll be saying, "You guys,
look here.
Yeah, look.
I found a brother."
Yes.
He told me his name is Muga. Do we know a Muga? Times have changed thanks to Samsung and the technology advancement in Samsung. And Samsung are even going further.
Yes, they are. And saying, there's a flip phone and there's a foldable phone. But what it's doing is enhancing the experience when it comes to the kind of pictures that you're able to take. Now phones with large screens that allow you in a minute to take out the phone and snap a picture. Going to Kisumu from Tamu is no longer necessary.
Yeah, it's not.
You can pick up the phone, snap the picture.
Who comes from Tamu here?
I do.
Your brother here. So, see, now he's already tracing. Samsung is allowing you to do that wonderful thing. And, with the technology that's being ramped up, allowing us to have those experiences at the touch of a button, and it's really great. What are your picture memories? What are ways in which you've been able to capture those moments? Let us know on our socials, SpiceFM KE on Facebook and YouTube as well. And there's some great Samsung merchandise for you as you tell us those experiences today.
27 to 8, time for a quick break. We'll be back shortly with the Honorable Judge.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day.
When you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. We don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us, assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi la Wokovu is Jeshi la Wokovu?
I can't say it very well.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your
Cloudy
day.
conditions in Nairobi this morning, and we're looking at 14 degrees, light rain as well, highs of 19. 24 will be the high in a cloudy Nakuru at 13, and it's raining as well at 12 in Nyeri, highs of 17. And 22 will be the high in a cloudy Eldoret at 11. It's raining at 22 in Mombasa, and we're also seeing rain coming down in Malindi at 23. That will go to highs of 28. It's 18 and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 28. 27 will be the high in a sunny Kakamega, currently at 14. Mostly sunny conditions at 18 in Kampala, and we'll see mostly sunny conditions this morning in Dar es Salaam, going to highs of 29. It's 8 degrees and cloudy in Johannesburg, highs of 18, and 29 will be the high in a cloudy Lagos at 24. It's 22 and cloudy in Kinshasa. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 21.
Spice up your life.
All right, so we're looking at a pretty foggy morning in several parts of the city. If you're headed in the general direction out towards the Nairobi-Nakuru highway, it's really foggy. You want to approach with caution. Fog lights up, they will be absolutely necessary this morning. The weather is not allowing faster movement than a slow trot, so you want to be careful with that. All right, coming back into Nairobi, we're looking at traffic that has built up on the Thika Superhighway coming into the city, but not too badly this morning. We're just at that drift after Utali, and then on Kiambu Road, it hasn't really picked up either. So this is not bad at all for now. Coming into Westlands, coming into the city, that is all right. Langata Road is where we'll see that pile up. And that whole industrial area circuit of Lunga, Likoni, Jogo Road, out towards Lusaka, that's built up this morning as well. A few minutes after 7:30, traffic hour starts. Now, let's see in about half hour what it turns out to be. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
23 minutes to 8. This is the Situation Room.
Mornings done right.
Broadcasting on Spice FM, live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and www.spicefm.co.ke. Thursday, the 4th day of August 2022. Hashtag Justice Thursdays. The Honorable Justice Stephen Radido, Judge of the Employment and Labour Relations Court, who is also a member of the Judiciary Committee on Administration of Justice and Performance Management in the Judiciary, is here with us in the studio. Judge, when we hear very many people who have taken cases to courts, you hear the issue of service. They are claiming service. Alinifuta na hakunilipa service. What is service?
Service pay? You know, our constitution provides for what we might call social protection. After you've left employment, how are you going to survive? You are old, you are unable to work. So inbuilt during the employment relationship, the employer, and sometimes with the contribution of the employee, is required to establish a fund which would protect the employee once they have retired. So many times, an employee is dismissed before the normal retirement.
Yes.
Some employers will say, you did not retire normally. I dismissed you because of misconduct. So I'm not going to pay you your service pay. And that's where the problem starts. I've been dismissed prematurely before normal retirement and have not been paid my service pay. Then they come to court. Now, what we look at is, was the employee contributing to what the National Social Security Fund? Because that's also a means of social protection.
Yep.
If you are contributing to the NSSF, then your service pay will come from that fund. If you are a member of a pension scheme or a provident fund, then your service pay will come from that pension scheme or provident fund. But in that respect, sometimes it's called a gratuity. If you are not a member of the National Social Security Fund, which by the way is mandatory, or a pension scheme, a provident fund, then the court will say, this one now you must pay their service pay, because that aspect of social protection was not there.
Why is it the responsibility of the employer to ensure that once I've terminated your services, I'm going to take care of your social well-being thereafter? After all,
Justice, take note, that's an employer speaking.
Yes. Now, social protection. You see, we are not just interested in you creating wealth for yourself. The employee must also share in that wealth or profit which he has helped to create after his retirement. All right? Now, the law requires each employer to ensure that the employee is a member of the National Social Security Fund at a very minimum level. If you don't do it, and you know that's the law, why shouldn't the courts penalize you and say you pay from your own resources?
Right.
Essentially, you're saying that the employer has the options.
Yes.
There are many ways in which they can contract the employee and ensure that these benefits that are mandatory accrue to them.
Yes.
And if they don't,
from your own resources.
Yes, then the court will now. So if it is the court determining, is there also a law that prescribes what it is that the court can determine to give the employee? Is it a percentage of what they've been earning over the years? How does that work out?
Unfortunately, the law has not prescribed. But from tradition and practice, in the industrial relations sector, normally we say that for each year worked, you are entitled to service pay equivalent to 15 days wages for that year. So if you work for 2 years, your service pay would be about the equivalent of 1 month's salary. 15 days for first year, 15 days for the second year. So that is a rule of thumb which we use. It's just a rule of thumb based on tradition and custom. But the law itself has not prescribed that you calculate, or this is the formula for calculating service pay. Where unions are involved, they normally negotiate with the employer, and they may agree on a higher. 18 days pay for each year, 20 days, 21 days. But if there is no negotiation, there is no mutuality of agreement, rule of thumb is 15 days. Yes.
Usually, a lot of the cases that fall here are, or let me rephrase that. Many times, domestic workers will then seek this redress because they could, leave one day. Circumstances under which they leave may be different. What are they entitled to? Because there seems to be no clear, drawn lines around what they can or cannot do if they've left the employ of somebody, because there are no, drawn out lines. There's no contract really for somebody who comes and is working in a domestic situation as a house manager or something else. What are the lines then that are drawn for them?
The bargaining power for a domestic worker is very minimal. If it exists at all. It's very minimal. So you'll find that when they seek employment, they are in a very disparate situation. The first thing they'll think of, am I going to earn a wage which can enable me to live? They'll not think about separation or what will happen after separation or what would be their entitlements after separation, because the bargaining power is not there. But it is upon the employer to ensure that these minimum rights for the employee, whether domestic or not, are implemented. So it is the employer to ensure, you want me to employ you as a domestic or a gardener? Please go and register with NSSF. Because if you do that, you'll find that you will be making contributions to the NSSF from the employee's own wages and a portion from your own side. So that's a win-win situation for both of you.
Yeah.
It's 400, 400. You don't do it, and the domestic later separates with you and comes to us and they tell us, I want my service pay. We will give her the service pay.
By virtue of the fact that this statutory, commitment was not being made.
The employer did not enforce or implement it. And it's upon the employer to implement or enforce, because it's the employer who is the agent of the NSSF to ensure that every month by 9th they make those deductions and remit them to the fund. All right?
So are we saying, I'm still on this domestic issue. So are we saying that really anybody who has a domestic worker in their employ then is required by law, and does the law state it required by law to have this done? It doesn't matter at what level you've hired a domestic worker.
You have no option, and it's the cheaper option.
Do you realize how many people are not doing this around the country?
Very many,
Yeah.
very many, very many.
You deal with this on a daily basis.
Yes.
If we then went back into what you talked about, contract for, contract off. If, let's say, the domestic worker is not on full-time basis, they come 3 times a week, are you still supposed to do all these things?
Yes.
That is like a fundi. If you said fundi comes to paint your house and they leave, and then next week they come and they're also very good at plumbing, they come, they do the plumbing, they go. They're also very good at roofing, they come and did roofing, they went. Isn't it the same? Could you argue it the same way?
You want to argue that a domestic worker who comes in 3 times a week is not an employee?
Yes.
They work under your control. You tell them what to do, what time to feed the baby.
Sorry.
Our law recognizes various... Sorry, you are a culprit.
Sorry.
You see, our law recognizes various types of employment.
Yes.
We have the fixed, the monthly paid like you and me, the piece rate workers, those who are on oral contracts, word of mouth, there is nothing in writing. If you want to be safe, have that person registered with NSSF. And there are voluntary contributions to NSSF as well. Agree with them that since you will be coming in 3 times a week, you register for the voluntary contributions and we can share. It's only 400 shillings. I'll deduct 200 shillings from your 3 times a week wages, and I'll also give another. That's a mutual agreement between you and me, but otherwise you cannot run away from it.
And so we're saying that the reason why this responsibility is not paid by very many employers in this country is because there's no pursuit of it by the worker. Most people will just leave and say, okay, well, tough luck. Let me see where I can get the next one. So essentially what you're saying is that people who have these individuals in their employ are breaching the law.
Very many are breaching the law as far as these statutory contributions are concerned. And it's not only NSSF. It even relates to NHIF, insurance, medical insurance. So in terms of enforcement, I don't think, because the enforcement should be by the Ministry of Labour, I don't think they have the capability to enforce this, because we have so many employees within a domestic setup or kwa mijengo. It's very difficult. Yeah, it's very difficult. And that's why, again, if the unions are involved, when the employees come together, organize, then they can fight for this through their unions. All right? But if it's left to individual employees, it's very difficult to enforce. The employees will be coming to us only after they've been dismissed. Yeah.
There's a question here, and I can understand that it seems that we're belaboring this particular point, but I think it's an important one, and that has come up quite regularly. And it's asked, if a domestic worker is in my employ and I am providing a certain number of things, they're living there, they're eating there, their bills essentially of water and the other amenities are paid, am I still then responsible for these other things? Should it then come to the court? Is that a case for the employer?
We get that quite a lot. The law has provided for certain minimums. There's a minimum wage. Whether you are providing the food, providing all those things, you must pay that minimum wage. You can't say I'm providing you with food, so I'll pay you less. On that one, there is no compromise.
Okay.
The law requires you to provide housing. Not pesa to pay rent, housing. Each employer should be providing the employee with housing, accommodation.
In a domestic situation?
In all situations. It is only when you do not provide that housing that you can pay an allowance to cover rent. Now, we have a situation where you are staying with your domestic or other employee. In such a case, we'll say you are providing housing
as required by law.
So you don't need to pay the allowance to cover rent. But you will not tell us that now I've provided the housing, you are sleeping, eating my food, I'll go below the minimums. That one you will not successfully defend yourself if you are challenged in a court of law. So those ones are gratuitous. They are from your heart. We have many cases where an employer will come and say, I was even paying school fees for the children.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been supporting.
I paid medical expenses for the father when they were sick. That's out of your own heart. But now when there is a challenge, we look at the law first, and then we'll consider that later.
Do you have provisions within the Employment and Labor Relations Court for out-of-court settlements? For example, somebody like that who comes and says, look, I had very good relations with this person when they were in my employ. One thing happened and, our relationship went south. Now we're finding ourselves in this court. But just by listening to how these two are conversing, you can tell that there was a good relationship here. Do you feel compelled at some point to tell them, can you guys go and have a conversation? I don't need to apply the law here. Go and have a conversation.
Where employees are organized and there's a trade union, your first port of call is through conciliation by the labor office. You cannot come direct to court if you are organized. There's a trade union involved. But if you are not organized, you are an individual, Muga against Standard Group, and you come to court, we'll accept. But we will encourage you, and we always encourage, try and settle these out of court. Because I can assure you, the best written judgment is always worse than the worst settlement between the parties. Because when we are writing the judgment, I'm only looking at the law. What are the rights? But when you sit with your employer or with the other side, you are looking at your own interests. What will be beneficial to us? Your employee knows how wealthy you are or what they can extract from you. And you also know how disparate your employee can be.
Yeah.
So, mnafinyana, okay? The outcome of that is much better than the best written judgment. We would always want to encourage people to settle disputes out of court. Because as they say, the sword of the law cuts both ways.
There is an employee who works in the industrial sector in this country of ours, and from what we read and from what we hear, that sector has many issues relating to how the people who are employed therein relate to their employer. And from what we read and from what we hear, it often boils down to what they are paid. Many complain it doesn't meet even the minimum standards. Are there ways in which, either through the unions, through FKE, that the courts can find ways of ensuring that these labor-related issues are settled within the places of work that people have, so as to minimize the possibility of them actually having to come to court?
Thank you. It's always a good practice for an employer to have grievance resolution mechanisms internally. where the employees can air their concerns, whether it is in respect of the underpayment of wages or other working conditions. I know there are factories you go to, you are sick and you are told you are not going home. And if you go, we will deduct it. You go to hospital, you bring your medical certificate, they'll still say you didn't work, we are going to deduct. So this type of grievances, at the first instance, the employer should create an enabling environment where they can be resolved internally. If they cannot be resolved internally, and the example you've given, it's widespread, it's notorious, then there are agencies which regulate. The report should be made to those agencies so that they come and investigate. We have people who are called labor investigators. All right? These labor investigators have the power, the legal power, to move into a workplace, examine records, talk with the employees to establish under what conditions are the employees working. After establishing under what those employees, the conditions the employees are working, they make recommendations to the employer. If the employer does not implement, then they can be taken before the magistrate and charged with offenses.
Okay.
Underpaying below the prescribed minimum wages is an offense. Refusing to give your employee leave when it's due.
It's an offense.
It's an offense. But we're looking at a situation, Judge, unfortunately, where a lot of people take on these jobs when they're in a state of desperation, isn't it? Yes. They'll take a lower wage because they were coming from zero. They will accept the conditions because there is no option for another one for them to stand up and leave. Does communication of these rights of individuals, no matter what situation you're in and where you're going, does communication of these rights then fall under the judiciary, or is it something that the judiciary in your court has taken up, whether through these, labor agents or such? Is it possible for people to get this information so regardless of how desperate you are, or regardless of whatever options you do not have, that there are certain things you must insist on?
Thank you. Creating this awareness primarily is not a function of the judiciary. Because if we were to go out to start creating awareness, we would be moving from our independence function and saying now we are now trying to incite workers on their rights.
Right.
But there are organizations which can do this. But even without those organizations, there is a function within the Ministry of Labor to go out and carry out surveys and investigations to establish that the working conditions meet the standards which have been set by law. So that function can perfectly be carried out by the Ministry of Labor. But again, they don't have the capacity. Now, if they don't have the capacity, who can step in? We have trade unions covering very many sectors. If it's the building sector, wale wanaenda kwa mijengo, we have Kenya Building or something. It can go and recruit within that sector and start agitating for those rights. If it is within the shipping sector, we have a union which covers that sector. If it's within the transport sector, the matatu sector, we have a transport union. It can move in, recruit, and start fighting for those rights. So I think this is a place where trade unions have not really played their rightful role. If they were to play their rightful role, move into all these sectors, recruit, have the workers organize, identify the challenges, and then try and resolve them with the employers, we would be far away.
Judge, you have shed light on a lot of the work that you do at the Employment and Labour Relations Court. And of course, many of the challenges that you face, which is clearly it sounds like it's a lack of awareness and lack of enforcement, both. And then, of course, it raises the issue of who needs to take up the mantle. But thank you for the work that you do. And thank you for also telling us about the performance management in the judiciary. It's been an enlightening 1 hour. Asante sana for joining us.
Thank you. The Chief Justice, the Honorable Chief Justice, is launching the performance management understandings today at 9:30 a.m. You are invited. She will be telling us how the courts have performed during the past 1 year and the way forward.
9 a.m. today.
9:30.
9:30.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Asante.
The Honorable Justice Stephen Radido, Judge of the Employment and Labor Relations Court, member of Administration of Justice and Performance Management Committee, has been here with us. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. 4.1 million Kenyans are facing food insecurity in 23 counties across the country. Public Service CS Margaret Kobia says the Ministry of Public Service and Special Programs has launched an initiative dubbed Lisha Jamii, aimed at providing food assistance to 535,000 people across 12 counties that are facing emergency levels of food insecurity.
The targeted counties are Turkana, Samburu, Isiolo, Garissa, Tana River, Baringo, Mandera, Wajir, Kitui, Kilifi, Kwale, and Marsabit. The food assistance will be provided for the 6 months through the cash transfer and in kind, with the beneficiaries' families set to receive 6,500 Kenya shillings per month.
Presidential ballot papers will be distributed across the country starting tomorrow. IBC Commissioner Francis Wanderi says the batch of papers has been safely stored in the warehouse ready for the dispatch process.
As we are talking today, 90% of non-strategic materials, that is ballot boxes and all those other materials, have already been distributed to the various constituencies in the country. So as of now, we have not distributed any presidential ballot papers.
He further states that they'll have to airlift ballot papers to Wajir, Garissa, Mandera, Turkana and Lamu counties due to security concerns.
These materials are being escorted by security, and when they get to the warehouse, they are also guarded 24 hours by security. So these areas is whereby it may be difficult going by load because of the security situation in that area to deliver the materials by load. That is why we have opted for that kind of a facility.
More than 7,000 inmates in penal institutions will vote for the presidential candidate only on Tuesday next week. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission states that Kisumu, Kamiti and Naivasha prisons have the highest number of voters, while Busia women and Kitui prisons have the lowest. Officer in charge of Naivasha GK prison, Hassan Tari, said they were working closely with IBC to ensure the event is smooth, with nearly all the registered inmates already ready to cast their votes. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights says 5 people have so far died in election campaigns. Commission Chairperson Roslyn Odede has called for the deployment of security by the IG Hilary Mtiambai to ensure human rights are not violated before, during and after the election.
The Commission has since February 2022 documented 5 cases of election-related deaths. 2 of these were as a result of road accidents involving vehicles associated with aspirants, while 3 others died from injuries allegedly inflicted by opposing political factions. This is indeed regrettable, since every life matters, and this is a pointer for a deliberate action by law enforcement officers and security agencies to be more alert and ensure the right to life is protected.
Odede has further called on political leaders to accept the outcome of the results, especially in areas deemed as strongholds. She has urged those who will feel aggrieved by the outcome to follow the right channels and also restrain their supporters.
The Commission also wishes to remind the organizers of political rallies and campaigns of their responsibility to carry out their activities in a conducive environment that ensures the safety of its supporters and members of the public.
With only 4 days left to the general elections, the Azimio La Umoja team will today pitch camp in Luanda, Vihiga County and Jomo Kenyatta Stadium, Kisumu County. UDA Presidential William Ruto's campaigns will see them go to Kuyusani and Kalamba, Makueni County and Muvita, Mombasa County. Both parties are expected to gather their funds in Kasarani Stadium and Nyayo Stadium respectively in Nairobi for their final rally on Saturday. Africa 100-meter champion Ferdinand Omanyala says his fans motivated him to win Kenya's first gold medal in the ongoing Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. Omanyala clocked 10 minutes 2 seconds to become the first Kenyan since Seraphine Antao in the 1960s.
I was feeling very nice when we started the Commonwealth Games and I knew I'm going to have it. So not putting pressure on myself, coming out, enjoying the game and having fun and delivering the goal. It's all about controlling the race from the start. I'm glad that I got a good start and I was in front, I think, for the rest of the 100 meters. So that's what I wanted. I achieved that. So thank you. Yeah, man, like better than Oregon. But the fans were, just loving and I really loved the energy that was in there and that really pushed me again. We're not yet done with the track. So we're still coming in.
That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
It's 104.5 Vibes Radio. Thank you so much, Leo Ubaga, for coming through with the news. Shout out to the one Chantel. Big up yourself. Right now, we're looking at traffic for Barabara.
102.5 SpiceFM. Kisumu.
All right, so we're still looking at traffic building up. Traffic hour started a while ago, about half an hour, and we're looking at it building up on the Thika Superhighway coming into the CBD. Into the CBD is where we see most of the action today. Langata Road pretty busy. Jogo Road also started earlier, and we're looking at really heavy traffic inbound on Landis Road, connecting with the Kamkunji roundabout. On Kiambu Road as well, bumper to bumper, in and outbound traffic is still doing the thing. A lot heavier than it was earlier. Having problems on the expressway, that's because the exit just around Westlands is slowing down a little bit. All the cash payments are slowing things down just a bit, but it should be all right in no time. Visibility is very poor this morning, heading out in the westerly direction, and you can hardly see where you're going. It's going to be a need to use your light situation for some time, so please do that. A few minutes after 8 o'clock, let's see what it looks like in half an hour. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Let's keep this Thursday moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up.
After 8, this is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the 4th day of August 2022, just 4 days to the general election. Election bila noma is the message. Let's all observe and maintain peace as we go into the final days of campaigns, final days of campaign messaging. It's getting hot, but we must look at each other as neighbors. Penda Jirani. We have a new guest joining us in the studio, Lieutenant General Mohammed Badi, the Director General of the Nairobi Metropolitan Service. Before we welcome him to the show, we want to hear the day's proverb. City?
Don't buy a boat that is underwater. This is a proverb from Congo Brazzaville.
Don't buy a boat that is underwater.
Yes. If you insist on buying a boat, make sure it's afloat. Yes, it has to be above water. If it's underwater,
it tells
a bit of a problem.
Yes, it's actually stopped being a boat. It's something else.
Something happened and led it to get underwater.
Yes.
And it means that it's no longer suitable as a marine vessel.
No, it is not.
Yeah, but we said if you want to, if you're collecting,
if you want a museum piece,
you're creating a museum.
It's all right.
It's okay. You can go and pick one, something like that. Our guest is a military flying man. So it's the same thing we would say. Yes. Do not buy a plane that is underwater. Especially. Lieutenant General Mohammed Badi. Yes. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us today. This is the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Okay.
And we are glad that you finally are occupying this seat. We have had conversations with you before, but they've been virtual.
Yes.
And finally you're here. It feels nice and warm, right?
Yeah.
Like that seat.
Well, I'm used to hot seats, so
Yes.
this is just one of them.
You know, when you were promoted to the rank of Lieutenant General, we congratulated you from far.
Yes.
But now that you're here,
Yes.
General Sir,
Thank you.
congratulations.
Very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a high rank in the military, and the people who don't know what that
the
rank
second
is.
highest.
There you go. So please explain that rank to the people who do not understand.
Lieutenant General is the topmost that any military officer can reach. The next rank is a full general, and there is only one in Kenya. So career-wise, to reach Lieutenant General is to reach the top of the career. And usually from the existing Lieutenant General, one is picked to be CDF when CDF times expire. So it's a rank that every career military officer looks forward to attain. Of course, it's not easy. You start falling out from the time you join. When you are a cadet, amongst the lot that is taken, there are those that fail and do not make it through the course. Those who qualify graduate as second lieutenant. Second lieutenant to lieutenant is like probation period. You do anything wrong, you get sacked. So when you make it to lieutenant is like the first step now, you are a commissioned officer. Then you continue because you are divided into different professions within the military. That's when you go for your career courses between lieutenant, captain, and major. So, for example, if you are air crew, you go for the basic pilot training. From the basic pilot training, the school identifies the fighter jet pilots, transport pilot, and helicopter pilots. So based on that classification, you are now sent to different units, which you continue further after the basic flying, which you qualify with wings, but then you are not a specialist on type. Then you go and specialize on the aircraft that you are posted, that unit, if it's a helicopter or transport or fighter. After you qualify, for example, if you are in helicopter or transport, you qualify to be a co-pilot. And in the fighter is a training pilot. So after that, you continue with the profession until you reach the rank of captain in flying. Then from there onwards, that's between captain and major. Apart from that, you're professional. There is also military exams that you have to go to. From lieutenant to captain, there are exams, military, not based on profession, general military affairs. Then captain to major, you also do exams. So once you reach the rank of major, you have become a professional, to say. And in between, if you make any mistake, again, you are eliminated. So an intake can have, usually like now in Lanet, in the Kenya Military Academy, every intake is around 150. As we go up, Lieutenant Colonel is a commanding officer where he's in charge of a unit, assets in terms of aircraft, personnel, and so forth. You are also tested through various tasks that you are given, and that causes you to get promotion to a full colonel, brigadier. Then from brigadier, you go to major general, and then lieutenant general.
Lieutenant General.
So you may start as 150, but end up being 5 once you reach.
Wow.
It's highly competitive, and it depends on your dedication to work, your patriotism, and of course, a lot of reading. Yes, so to back it up.
Let me pick up on that note of reading. When you go for the various training, because from what you've said, at every stage there's either an exam or there's some training.
Yes.
So by the time you get to a lieutenant colonel, where you are now not just commanding men but assets, it means you've been given a position of authority.
Yes.
So do I take it that the training you go into at that point in time also involves administrative and management training?
Yes, it does involve administrative strategies, peacekeeping, because as an officer rank major and above, you usually go for peacekeeping missions where you are in charge of men. So you control situations of both war and peace and try to bring calmness in that affected area. So there are a lot of trainings that you go through, especially in the junior ranks. Right now, as you know, His Excellency the President yesterday commissioned the Kenya Defense University.
Yes, in Lanet.
Now, a cadet must do 3 years basic training, where he qualifies with a basic degree. Then from there onwards, he'll continue with his professional training on the type of assets that where he is based for, whether he's a seaman or an airman or an infantryman or a tank. So there are various trainings that the different 3 services, Army, Air Force, and Navy undergo. By the time you reach, in between, as I said, you do the exam, promotion exams. There is also mid-career course, which are usually short ones. When you reach a major, then you do the staff course. And in our syllabuses now, the staff course is done by majors and lieutenant colonel, where you are expected to do your masters. So we are now totally changing from the old days
to the new era.
To the new era. So we do hope in the future to make to full colonel, you must have PhD.
And if you then become a colonel, your next step is to be a 1-star general.
Yes.
Will there also be a training? So that's where you're saying at that point, the requirement will be you need to have a PhD.
Yes. That's ideally. What's supposed to be. But right now, it's sufficient to have a master's when you are doing colonel to brigadier. But yes, it's a 1-year course.
Do I then take it to mean that the courses that we used to hear where officers go abroad, some go to Sandhurst, some go to the UK, some go to all these colleges, that the sort of trainings that were being offered then are now being offered in Kenya? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Looking
we are offering the same Sandhurst training is now offered in Lanet. The same courses that you do in India is now offered here. And some of these colleges, we even exchange instructors. You'll find Kenyan instructors in UK and some of the British guys here. Like our college in Karen has an instructor from all the East African countries.
Which one? National Defense?
No, Defense Staff College, yes.
Okay.
It has instructors. Because Defense Staff College is where you last do professional military training. When you go to National Defense College, it's issues of strategy, policies, and it's not only military officers, but all government officers, including police, KWS, and
administrators.
Administrators, the DCs. So that's at policy level and strategy.
Okay. Looking at the breadth of education and training, obviously, that you went through as a military man.
Yes.
Then you were now given a mandate after that to basically run the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. Do you think that there was adequate preparation in the previous assignments that you had, and then now moving to the Metropolitan Service and all the demands, because many could describe Nairobi as a war zone, all the demands that were required?
Yeah.
Was it just what you needed?
Yes. Basically, by the time an officer reaches the rank of brigadier, as I said, you can comfortably make policies, write and make policies, write a strategy, whether it's on a county or the country as a whole, depending on the situation. So mentally, once you go through National Defense College, you are prepared because by the time you finish, not only it is taught by the military personnel, but University of Nairobi, Kenyatta University also has their professors coming.
Yes.
And you are examined in all those government policies and strategies. So ideally, once you pass through National Defense College, you are prepared to take on such jobs as county, even ministerial job, because basically you are giving policies and directions on what is to be done. And that is why we train all government officers at National Defense College. Yeah.
So what were some of the things that, as this appointment then took place, what were some of the things that you knew you had to tackle or that you actually started to tackle within Nairobi?
Well, when I was first selected, it was a surprise. But given the mandate that I had to take over, remember, I have not taken over all functions. It is just 4 functions, and that is environment, water, sanitation and energy, then transport and public works, then urban planning, land and housing, and last not least health. So those 4 functions were given to me. Unfortunate for me, when NMS was chosen, COVID had just been announced in Kenya. So the first task I was asked by His Excellency, how do you prevent Nairobi citizens from contracting COVID? And if they do, how do you minimize? So I had to do a survey, physical survey in all the areas in Nairobi. That is when we discovered that all the slums had no hospitals, not even a single one. In slums like Mathare and Kibera, because of their fame, there were a few NGOs operating dispensaries. So those were better off than other slums. And in Nairobi, there are 13 slums, by the way. People just know 4 or 5. But some of them, like Nakuru, is quite huge with a population of over 400,000. So when we went to survey, there was only a Dutch Catholic dispensary with 7 beds. And these 7 beds were actually maternity, not for other treatments. So you could see on the kickoff of our mandate, we were already...
health was a priority.
Yes. Second, as you know, in Nairobi, there was always problem of water. There was no water. So how do you go, like in a radio station, like the way you have been doing to fight COVID, telling people to wash their hands, stay clean, use sanitizers and masks. These poor people have never seen a drop of clean water. Yet you are telling them to wash their hands. What would they wash their hands? So those were the health hazard that we met immediately. So we had to draw a strategy because my task was to make sure that COVID, if contracted, would be restricted to that area and would be able to be treated, or those people isolated within a facility If it is Nakuru, within Nakuru. If it's Kibera, within Kibera. And that's why we now, with that, we wrote a policy paper that there must be hospitals in all slums. Second, we must dig boreholes as a case of emergency. By that time, we took over in 2020 the usual government contracts to drill a borehole. Say if you wanted 100 boreholes, they'll give you an estimate of 2 years. We didn't have that time. So I wrote my orders, just like the way we do in the military, that we must do 100 boreholes around Nairobi within the first 100 days. It was a great challenge, but we did it in 80 days. So that alleviated the first problem of water, providing water, especially disadvantaged areas like the estates along Jogoo Road and so forth, and the slums. So, and automatically by providing, we didn't plan for it, but by providing that clean water, the waterborne diseases that were suffering, people in the slums were suffering, dropped by 40%. So that's a plus point. And then, of course, we got organization that gave us mass to distribute. And we started within the first 100 days also, we had around 4 hospitals that were built in different locations, and we increased them. And we are still continuing with that task of building hospitals. As per today, we have already commissioned 20 hospitals. We hope the other 8 are in various stages, which should be completed soon.
Let me ask about the water and that 100 days, 100 boreholes.
Yeah.
What did you use? Did you use the existing county county government equipment? Did you use national government equipment, or did you subcontract private sector?
We subcontracted private sector because that's the more efficient way of doing it, more economical. And of course, if you subcontract, rather than go for the government equipment, which will be limited, if you subcontract, let's say 20 contractors, they'll all start on day one, and after 2-3 weeks, everybody has achieved a borehole. So it was easier to do it that way, and we did it at national level because it was a state of emergency to me.
Okay. I want to take a break at this point and then continue the conversation looking at what else the NMS has been able to do since March 2020. Just 3 days after the first COVID case was announced in the country, 3 days later, the then Major General Mohammed Badi is appointed NMS Director. And he says, getting in there and you're told, okay, there is COVID. Nairobi is where the biggest risk is.
The epicenter.
The epicenter. Make sure that there's no spread. You'll tell us more about this and more of the work that you've been doing. 28 minutes to 8. We are live on SpiceFM, KTN Home. We are also live streaming the show on YouTube and Facebook. General, you've heard of Pocket by Mozilla? It's an app. Ndu will tell you about it.
Right, so you know how there's so many things that you're reading at the same time?
Yes.
This thing, the other thing, on the internet, back and forth. There's certain things you want to listen to. Maybe somebody has sent you a clip that you ought to watch, and you just don't have the time at once to get all of these things done. Well, Pocket by Mozilla is a fantastic app, and you can download it on the Google Play Store or Apple App Store. And what it allows you to do is literally store those things in your pocket, and then you can go pick them up later. Have an article that is going to be updated, it's automatically updated. Beyond information, it's also entertainment, things that you know you'd like to read. You can put them together and form great collections and see what Kenyan artists are also curating. So it's a really great thing to have, great thing to use, instead of millions of pieces of paper all over the place. Store it away in your pocket.
I agree with you totally. But in the military, we also use to staff work that you minimize almost every subject in a short form, so that out of the duties you are doing, you don't leave any any of the tasks out.
Great. 29 minutes after 8. Keep it here. We'll be back shortly after this quick break.
This nation has never healed genuinely from the 2008 violence. We've never had a healing process. We've swept it under the rug.
Let me tell you, the handshake was the most disastrous political event in the history of country after the coup attempt of 1982.
There is no Kikuyu pothole, Luo lack of water, or Kamba,
lack of traffic.
Yeah. There is no Luya lack of drugs in the hospitals. Or Jaluo one. All our issues are the same issues.
If you are in a room and just about everybody in that room has a court case or another, what impression does that give you?
What are you saying? Why haven't you done it in the last 20 years? But they're telling us, like August, some miracle is going to happen. My friend, I want to tell Kenyans, you'll be in for a rude shock.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
All right, so the rain is still coming down in parts of Nairobi this morning. Pretty foggy conditions, so you want to, again, watch out for that. Highs of 19 and lows of 14. It's 23 that will be the high in Nakuru, where it's sunny this morning at 16. Light rain is coming down in Nyeri at 13, and it's 14 and sunny in Eldoret, highs of 22. The rain is also coming down in Mombasa, highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 28 in a rainy Malindi at 23. It's mostly sunny at 20 in Kisumu, highs of 27. 27 will be the high in Kakamega, where it's sunny at 21. Mostly cloudy conditions at 20 in Kampala, and the sun is out in Dar es Salaam at 23, going to highs of 29. It's 10 degrees and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 18, and we'll see highs of 29 in a mostly clear Lagos at 23. And it's 21 and cloudy in Kinshasa. We'll see highs of 32 and lows of 21. Still looking at traffic piled up quite some on Langata Road as you're heading out into the city. Still looking at that right now. Also coming off the Thika Superhighway, that has not been too much of an issue this morning. And so we're just looking at that Pangani underpass out towards the city. Coming off Kiambu Road, still a thing this morning. And we're looking at Uhuru Highway quite packed. What's this? Landis Road, really heavy traffic coming off Lusaka and Jogo Road as well. And inbound towards Kamkunji is an absolute mess this morning. Raila Odinga Way is taking some of the traffic off of Langata Road, and we're seeing Gong Road also building up quite somewhere. In traffic hour proper, Lunga in and outbound traffic still continues. Let's talk in about half hour and see where we are. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
27 minutes to 9. You're just joining us. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the Situation Room on SpiceFM, on YouTube, on Facebook, on KTN Home, and on KTN News. Our guest this morning is Lieutenant General Mohammed Badi. He is the Director General of the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. We are unpacking the legacy of the NMS since 2020, when it was established after the handover of some functions from the Nairobi County government to the national government. And NMS was then established to be the one that takes over these functions and delivers. General, you've told us about the health and the health facilities. Of course, everybody has talked about the health facilities that NMS came and put up within a very short time. 20 already commissioned, 8 still in the pipeline. You are sure that they're going to be commissioned by the end of this year.
Yes.
This 20, how did you identify the areas that are going to be put up? Number 2, whose land was it?
The 20 were mainly in informal settlement. As I said earlier, we have 13 informal settlements. So we identified that all informal settlement and areas, disadvantaged areas, each got a hospital. If it was not level 2, at least level 3. So after doing the assessment of the informal settlements, and these are areas that never had a health facility since independence. So we picked on these areas and started identifying the land. In some cases, it was easy for us because it was county land. But in areas, especially in slums where it is squeezed and so forth, we shared the land either with the chief or a police station if it's nearby. Any government institution that had land and had an extra quarter acre lying idle, we went for that. To avoid one expense of buying land, because the cost would have been too much. So one, we identified our own county land, and in an area where there were no existing county land, then we shared with other national government agencies that are located, and we co-located with them and built the hospital there. And most of them appreciated it because the facility made a facelift to the already existing old government places.
Administration areas.
Yeah.
Then how did you go about establishing this 20 hospitals? Is it the same thing like you did with water in terms of going to the private sector and subcontracting various organizations, or did you pick on one?
Because of expertise, we used AMREF. AMREF is actually an organization that identifies the people who bring in equipment, medical equipment, people expert in building hospitals. So through national government, we contracted AMREF to do all the hospitals. And it is AMREF who identified the contractors and the equipment to be brought at various hospitals. So it was much easier for us.
Okay. We actually had a conversation previously with the Director for Health Services in the county, the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. And one of the issues that came up then and still continues to be an issue now then is servicing the debts that's owed to KEMSA and such, by the services. And then also being able to make sure that these hospitals are fully equipped with the commodity that is necessary to deliver the service. How have you been able to deal with that? And what are we looking at going forward?
In terms of revenue, we get our money or budget from national government and county. So we inherited a huge debt from county as far as medical suppliers are concerned. We are not yet out of the woods when it comes to those bills. They were huge bills. So we started planning because it's our task. And it was within our mandate to run all the hospitals, apart from the new ones. We started servicing from part of the money from county revenue to pay back the bills. And of course, with the help of Ministry of Health and national government, we were able to pay off KEMSA and some of these big organizations which had actually stopped providing medicines to our hospitals. We still have minor problems with suppliers because we have not paid all of them. But with the engagement of national government, we are able slowly to ease off that debt. And we hope by the time we hand over next week, we would have cleared most of the bills and now give the county a clean bill of health to continue running with these hospitals and health facilities. Apart from that, remember that most of the people within the slum areas had no access to hospital insurance. And this is a big burden because if they are not registered with NHIF, if they come to our hospitals, we don't get any reimbursements. So we took an initiative of, first through the health volunteers, identify the families living in these disadvantaged areas, which came almost to 236,000 families, which had no access. So through our budget, we sponsored 66,000 households to NHIF. That has decreased the burden when you hear everybody going for fundraising now to pay off hospital bills. Those 66,000 households are now completely insured through NMS. So we believe by the time we're handing over, the county should be able to increase that number at least to 100,000 plus, so that the most poor families within Nairobi County will have access to medicine.
Is this under NMS or is this under the national plan for covering the people who are disadvantaged with access to
We
NHIF?
did it under national government, but concentrated with people within Nairobi County.
So is it going to be to continue as a national government initiative, or is it going to be handed over to the new county government that comes in?
We are going to hand it over to the new county government, and we hope that they will now budget it annually every year to help the poor.
You know, one of the things that always gets the attention of people who live in this city is something that you've mentioned. It's called just service provision. We've talked about water. We've talked about healthcare. Now, you said you took over 5 services, okay? Health.
Then environment, water, sanitation and energy. Then urban planning and housing, health, then public transport and public works.
Okay, now, what I want to ask is with regards to urban planning. Yes, just the planning. Because in my mind, all these things that we're talking about, if they're not planned for adequately, or if they haven't been given the sort of attention and planning that is required, the problems that we are trying to overcome will still be with us. So what has the NMS done to ensure that some of these perennial problems that we have, for instance, slums that we have, what is it that is in the plan to ensure that the habitation that you find in these places actually meet basic minimum standards of habitations for human beings? And when I say habitation, I mean not just a place, a roof over someone's head, but everything else, the amenities that go with it. Just basic. Shelter's taken care of, water's taken care of, health you've already taken care of. What is the planning?
First and foremost, after identifying these areas, we gazetted them as special planning zones or special planning area. That exempts the area from the strict rules, like if you say a road passes through an estate must be 6 meters. In a slum, you'll hardly get 2 meters of road. So by putting it under special planning zone, you can still build that road of 2.5 meters or 3. Because what you need most is, as you said, is to provide services to these people. Remember that no ambulance could drive through Mathare, no ambulance could drive through Kibera, no fire vehicle could go down any of the slums, neither would a police vehicle go down. So already you have cut off security because a police vehicle can't go down. You have cut off services like fire tenders. So in case of fire, people would just scream and the poor fire guys would stay on top of the main road and try to push the pipe, how much you can push. So the first thing we did is we put these areas under special planning zone. And again, now went back to the government, said, first, we must build roads in all the slums. And I'm happy to report now all the slums have tarmac roads. We have been able to build 500 kilometers by contracting China roads and bridges because we didn't have that capacity to take on all the slums
at the same time.
You needed equipment, manpower. So we gave a major contract to China Roads and is about to complete the 500 kilometers. Now, the 500 kilometers also have a condition. While building the road, you must also lay pipes of water and sewage pipes. So that, in terms of planning, we have already upgraded all the slums because all of them are connected with water pipe. Not that there is water, but the infrastructure is there. Second, we have connected all the slums with sewerage pipe. So the day all those slums will have proper sewage system, it will be just to connect to the main pipe and goes.
Was there any specific
planning? And then we provided streetlights in all those areas. So in terms of electricity, we have now made sure all the slums are connected. Then the other phase that is supposed to come is now the low-cost housing. If you go into some of the rural areas like Indonesia and all that have been able to do it, what they do is the government provides material and supervision, but you build your own house. And then you repay slowly. So labor, you provide. Government provides material and supervision. The basic standard house is made. And if usually it's around 1 floor or 2 floors. So the flats are built. What you do is you identify a transit area. And for Nakuru, I think they identified the veterinary land there, where they are going to build a transit place, then move, say, 100 families to that transit, then make sure you provide them material and support to build those 100 houses. Once they are complete, these guys, you move them back now to their own houses, take the next 100 lot and continue that lot, because it's quite expensive unless you get donor support to do all the slums at the same time. But the plans are there. We have already written them. Now it's up to either county or national government to take it up.
We've got to ask you this question, General, and this is with regards to a project that you've been undertaking in the CBD. This is at Uhuru Park. The rehabilitation of Uhuru Park. It's been closed to the public for a while. What are you doing there?
Well, if you notice that since Uhuru Park was met, there has been no improvement. The lake that people row the boat is absolutely filthy. If a poor child has to fall in there, you don't know what diseases will come out, even after you rescue him. Kenyans need a place where they can relax. As you know, mental stress or mental problems are increasing day by day in all urban cities, not only Kenya. You hear of mental stress quite a lot nowadays in our families. And that's due to a lot of stress. Unfortunately for Nairobi, most of the public land or children's playgrounds have been grabbed. And it is a fact. You go to any estate, you will not find a football field where children can play. So where do these children entertain themselves? We started with Bichuki Park. Remember, Michuki did a wonderful job by making that park, but by the time we took over, that was a place where chokoras used to sleep. In fact, all the magas in Nairobi used to sleep there. The day I took over and chased them out, I found almost 1,000 ID cards and bank cards. You can imagine the people that had undergone that stress of being stolen. So it is unfortunate. So we sealed off that area. We started by, through UN Habitat, cleaning the Nairobi River. Unfortunately, some of our factories and housing estate discharge their effluent into Nairobi River. So when you went to Michuki Park, the river was almost a sewer. You could not. So we started by using enforcement officers and officers from NEMA and Kenya Forest Services, arresting those estates who discharged. And our courts were very helpful in giving heavy fines to the factories that discharge their effluent discharge into Nairobi River. So when the message went around that 4 factories have been fined and 2 housing estates, I think that stopped. Then using the local administration, the chief, sub-chief, we were now educating the people not to throw their garbage into the river. So that has also minimized. I'm not saying it has stopped, but it has minimized. So we were able to clean that river that passes through Michuki Park. And by the time we opened Michuki Park, there were fish.
In the river?
In the river. And even a crocodile, which had given birth to 2 babies. So we don't know how that crocodile appeared, but we call it our watchman. Because nobody entered that river again.
So Uhuru Park?
Uhuru Park, after cleaning and making up Michuki Park, the demand was very high. We could see people now, especially students from Nairobi University, would come with their books and study and sit. There are families that work in offices around Globe Roundabout. All of them over lunch went to Michuki Park. So you could easily see the demand. So we decided, why don't we make Uhuru Park and Central Park, the one in front of Serena? That, because Uhuru Park is around 43 acres, and Central Park is 20-something. Total, if you combine Uhuru Park and Central Park, is around 68 acres. This, by the size, can take around 60,000 people. So we said for once, let's remove the issue of having parades in Uhuru Park. Let's remove the issue of having public rallies in Uhuru Park and totally change it to be for entertainment.
For recreation.
For recreation. So we have embarked on that work. It has taken us time because we went benchmarking in the near countries like Addis. They have beautiful parks and recreational centers, and now modified what we saw to suit Kenyan taste. So within Uhuru Park, there'll be high-end restaurants, middle-income restaurants, and low-end restaurants. And trying to create, we have made restaurants made of old buses, those double-deckers. We have children ice cream parlors from old combis. If you remember, you just remove the roof, put the lighting, paint it, and we even have an aircraft. You know, I'm an air crew,
Yeah,
so
of course. Air
we-
Force man has to have his thing.
Yes, we have a Boeing, which we are converting it into a restaurant. And it will be placed in Uhuru Park.
When do you hope to open this park?
We intend to open it this weekend.
This weekend?
It will be commissioned this weekend. The work is not, let's say we are around 80% finished. So it will take us another month or 2 to completely finish it and open it to public.
Okay.
But His Excellency the President will open it this
General,
week.
Ndu has a question, I'm sure, or
Yes.
something else that you're doing near Uhuru Park.
Right,
Yes.
that's the Green Park terminus, and we
Yes.
saw. I mean, there was the pilot 1 and pilot 2,
Yes.
and there was a lot of uproar about this in terms of what we were asking then pedestrians and those who are using public transport to do. So, what is the current status of the Green Park terminus, and then where are public transport vehicles terminating and moving forward?
Green Park was just one of the example of the terminus that we are having. We were supposed to have actually 5 or 6. All routes coming to Nairobi had to have their own terminus. We have one at Park Road and Desai Road. Then we wanted to make one in Westlands. We are in the process. There is one at Globe Roundabout. And there is one on Landis Road to cater from the cars coming via Jogo Road. Then there is one in Bunyala Road that caters for Mombasa Road traffic. Green Park is actually for cars coming from Gong and so forth. Unfortunate for us, we started with Green Park, Desai Road, and Park Road. So the other road users, or PSV, thought that we are going to force them to take different routes. So they went on strike and were forcing the government to stop it until we have everything in place. It's not so easy to have the money to build all the 6 or 7 terminals at a go. So we started with 3, and we hope we now hand over to the county to finish the other 3. Then they'll be fully operational. But the Green Park is actually a very good model, because not only the operation center at Green Park has complete TVs that monitor all the cars coming from that route. For example, for Green Park, we had street cameras all the way to Ngong. The operation officer sitting in the ops room, Green Park, can see all matatus coming via Ngong Road to CBD. He knows the number plate of matatu. He knows what passengers are alighting at which stage. Let's say your wallet is stolen and you took this matatu at Ngong. This policeman can replay the video and see that you entered at Ngong. Certain people are lighted, let's say Haligab and all. And then we do face recognition and then give it to the police. So in terms of security, we're even enhancing it. Okay? And then everything in Green Park is digital. So the moment your matatu enters, it will give you even the estimated time you should be leaving Green Park and the route back. So it is an efficient way of managing traffic. Unfortunately, it was misunderstood by some of matatu circles, so they went on strike. But we are going to do it. We hope that we'll commission it even this weekend with Uhuru Park. Whether it will take off to start, that will be on the next governor to decide.
The next governor of Nairobi to do. Lieutenant General Mohammed Badi, we thank you very much for coming. I mean, 1 hour is a short time for a conversation such as this. We'd hope to actually be able to extend it a bit longer. But you can come back. Before you leave office, before you say goodbye to NMS and head back to the barracks, please come back.
I will.
Yes?
There's a lot of achievement we have done. And for those who don't know and can only see the Cabro, I think they should take a walk in the slum areas and see what difference we have made. And the worst nightmare, again, when we took over was garbage. Garbage was huge in heaps. In some areas like Mudurwa, it was almost 2-story building height worth of garbage that had been left. But we cleared. We have increased the garbage collection. And we have now outsourced because the county doesn't have enough vehicles to cater for all the 17 constituencies in Nairobi. So we have subcontracted private guys who now go around the constituencies to collect. So we have a better and cleaner county.
Come again. Before you leave office, we will talk to you, especially now looking back into the accountability mechanisms, who you are reporting to, who you will be handing over to, and what exactly you'll be handing over in terms of assets, in terms of liabilities as well to the next government.
Thank you very much.
Asante sana.
All right.
Lieutenant General Mohammed Badi, Director General of the Nairobi Metropolitan Service. Keep it here for more conversations on SpiceFM. It's now 9 a.m.
To announce some of the people he plans to work with in his government if he wins the election come next week on Tuesday. In a press release, Maure has also indicated that he'll be talking about the security situation and the need for peace in the country. In his campaign schedule, he'll hold a series of meetings in Githurai and then end with a prayer meeting on Saturday, which is the last day of the campaigns. It should be noted that today, Deputy President William Ruto is heading to the coast, passing through Makueni, while Raila Odinga is campaigning in Kisumu and its suburbs. The schedule of the fourth candidate, Professor Wajakoya, is not yet known, although yesterday he was in Mount Kenya. Now, Roots Party presidential candidate George Wajakoya says there is a petition filed in court to have IBC take him to do a psychiatric test that because people think that he's mad. Wajakoya further says that his wealth is his brain and nothing more.
Some of my opponents filed a petition in court for the court to order IBC to take me for psychiatric examination because they see that I'm a mad person. The judges are like, what kind of thing is this? They throw it out. I don't even bother going there. Things that were meant to distract me, things that were meant to, even in my party, a lot of things are happening now. But I'm not really bothered because things that are meant to distract somebody, you do away with them.
More than 7,000 inmates in penal institutions will vote for the presidential candidate only. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission states that Kisumu, Kamiti and Naivasha prisons have the highest number of voters, while Busia Women and Kitui prisons have the lowest. Officer in charge of Naivasha JK Prison, Hassan Tari, says they are working closely with IBC to ensure the event is smooth, with nearly all registered inmates already ready to cast their votes. And the High Court will today make a ruling on whether IBC will rely on KEMS kits as the only mode of voter identification in next week's general elections or not. Several lobby groups have challenged the decision of the Commission to use KEMS kits. In a petition filed in court, the 7 lobby groups want the court to order IBC to provide a manual register of voters in every polling station. They argue that the decision made by the Commission and its chair, Wafula Chebukati, is not only in violation of the statute but also susceptible to massive failure, which can lead to the ultimate postponement of the general elections. 5 people have so far died during election campaigns. Kenya National Commission on Human Rights Commission Chairperson Roslyn Odede has called for the deployment of security in areas that look like they'll have violence during and after the election.
The Commission has since February 2022 documented 5 cases of election-related deaths. 2 of these were the result of road accidents involving vehicles associated with aspirants, while 3 others died from injuries allegedly inflicted by opposing political factions. This is indeed regrettable, since every life matters, and this is a pointer for a deliberate action by law enforcement officers and security agencies to be more alert and ensure the right to life is protected.
Odede has also called on political leaders to accept the outcome of the results, especially in areas deemed as strongholds. She has urged those who feel aggrieved by the outcome to follow the right channels and also restrain their supporters.
The Commission also wishes to remind the organizers of political rallies and campaigns of their responsibility to carry out their activities in a conducive environment that ensures the safety of its supporters and members of the public.
And finally, China is kicking off its biggest ever military exercises in the seas around Taiwan. Following U.S. politician Nancy Pelosi's visit, the live fire drills began at 12 o'clock local time and in several areas were due to take place within 12 miles of the island. Taiwan said China was trying to change the status quo in the region. Pelosi made a brief but controversial visit to Taiwan, which China regards as a breakaway province. The drills are Beijing's main response, although it has also blocked some trade with the island. The exercises are due to take place in busy waterways and will include long-range live ammunition shooting. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubag.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, a few minutes after 9 o'clock, and we're still seeing traffic in certain parts of the city. It's likely to take us through for some time. And the visibility issue is the issue this morning. And the weather is not helping, but folks are trying to be as careful as possible from what we've seen. A couple of accidents that we could have avoided. We're looking at traffic on Lunga Lunga, and it's really heavy. Started off from Outer Ring and going out towards Likoni on the interchange of Mombasa Road and spilling over towards the Southern Bypass. So that's doing a thing. And we're also looking at Landis that was really heavy earlier and is still doing that right now. Kiambu Road then feeding off to Muthaiga Square and then out into the city. Bangai Mathai Road then connects with Limuru Road, and there we have a mess. So we're keeping an eye on things, letting us know what's going on where you are. Of course, SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Kenya's biggest conversation enters the final hour of the show this lovely Thursday. It's the first Friday of the month.
This Thursday.
Yeah. This Thursday is the first Friday of the month. That conversation with the Director General of NMS, very many things that he has said, but still a lot that we still would like to hear from him. And he has promised to come back because we also want to know, for example, when he leaves office, there are organizations that have been contracted by the NMS to provide services. And some of them have not been paid. So what's going to happen? Who's going to pay them? Is it the NMS that's going to pay them? NMS, remember, is a function in the national government. Or is it the county government that's going to pay them? Are they going to be asking questions of who they're going to pay? Who are they going to be sending their bills to? Those things will be dicey.
Actually, they will be, but I consider NMS took over and they were paying debts that had been accumulated by the county government.
Yes.
NMS came in and they were performing functions. Now, one of the things that has come out clearly is how it is national government and county governments can crisscross. So, when NMS exits, come in county government. County government has to ensure that the revenue collection, what we call on-source revenue, shoots up and goes up. That they optimize it. They have to make sure that there are greater efficiencies than whatever government that there was there before. Because these responsibilities that NMS has will be their responsibility.
They'll go back to them.
Yes, it is their responsibility.
Yeah.
Yes.
My point of concern was any contractor who is left with a pending bill by the time NMS is normal and the functions that are being performed by the national government revert to the county government. Will the county government just accept all the liabilities as they are without questioning? Will you start being taken on a round and said, we have to audit? We have to audit. First of all, how are you contracted?
They will be taken on a round.
Was it legal?
They will be taken around on a round and around and round and about. I think those sort of contracts the national government should take over, because NMS was a national government function. They would know exactly how to deal with it. Because you put it to the county government with all its politics, the poor contractor will have a hell of a time. Yes.
The good general has promised to come back so we can talk about these and other issues in future. We have a new guest in the studio. We want to talk about political campaigns now and the kind of conversations that are taking place on social media. Hey. Before we welcome her, let's hear the day's proverb.
Do not buy a boat that is underwater.
Do not buy a boat that is underwater.
Yes, seafaring vessel, meaning it travels above water. If it is underwater, it is called a submarine. A boat is not. Well, in essence, it actually is a boat. But for this particular purpose, it isn't built. This one is built to traverse the waters above it, not under it. So if it's underwater, man, nothing is higher, and you buy it. You just tell us what it is you're buying, but it's most definitely not a boat.
You're buying something else.
You're buying something else. It was a boat, but at that particular point in time, it's a former boat.
It has changed.
It's a former boat.
Neema Mutemi is a communications and security expert, and she joins us now in the studio. We want to have a conversation about social media, particularly Facebook, and policing election-related hate speech on these platforms. Neema, good morning.
Good morning, Latif.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Welcome to the hot seat.
Thank you for having me back.
Being here just after a general has left, you understand?
Where pressure? Alafu before that, a judge.
Before that, a judge.
You chose the good day.
Why? Hey.
But just so that we can equalize the situation, before that it was just us. And now again it's just us, and then you.
And then now you, right?
What are you trying to say about me, Latif?
Yeah? That we are equal.
I'm not up to task.
That we
Oh no!
On
the
general.
We're actually saying the complete
We're
opposite.
major general.
Wait, I used to be Secretary General of Kenyatta University Students Association. So I think niko kwa hiyo league.
Uko kwa League of Generals,
I've used general in my name.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good one. That's a good one. Neema, how are you doing? What do you do besides, being a former Secretary General?
Of course.
Yes.
I do communication. I think that's how most people know me. But I don't talk about this much, but I also have a background in security, terrorism and insurgencies, basically political violence. And I do consult, especially in the area of preventing and countering radicalization and violent extremism. So I see myself as a communicator who tries to help the security sector to be more effective. Because some of the tactics and strategies that we use in corporate communication, in media relations, we can actually employ them, especially to a country like ours, evolving democracy, where we still want to promote our civil liberties, but in a safe environment where we still have all these new and emerging threats. The threat of violence is very real to every Kenyan. It's something that we think about at the back of our minds, and unfortunately during times like this, we are forced to remember how close it is and how things can change in a very short minute.
We are in the final days of the campaigns for this election. Final day is Saturday. Big rallies planned everywhere, but right now we are seeing a lot of communication coming from the various political campaigns, the various political camps for all seats. Of course, it gets to that point where now you are trying to rally your supporters by tugging at their emotion, making them feel insecure, or making them feel secure, or making them feel that if they don't come out to vote on that day, then they have lost big time, That comes also with deliberate misinformation and disinformation that is taking place, especially on social media platforms. Are you noticing that?
Definitely. And it's sad because generally we've done very well. Like for the first time in my adult life and since I started participating in the political process, for the first time we actually saw a prolonged period of campaigning and electioneering that was driving issues. That was, very enriching conversations. And Kenyans were able to actually engage, not only with the conversation of why is ugali not affordable, but, from ugali is not affordable to why is ugali not affordable and what can we do about it? Can we sell snakes? Even if some of them went to some extremes that people didn't take too seriously, that was a very good trajectory of our country. But now towards the end, we are seeing that shift to, personality attacks and ethnic attacks. And that is definitely very dangerous. The government said, through NCIC that whilst we've seen the incidences of hate speech reduce in the public arena, the rallies that we are used to, they have actually migrated to social media. Mm-hmm. So we can't quite say that we are less guilty of hate speech. It's just that the form in which we are practicing it has migrated, and we probably do not have sufficient tools to know the full extent to which that is. And that's where we have a problem.
So what are we seeing? If we're saying that the form of it has moved to social media, what are we seeing? Yes, because indeed, the chair of the NCIC was here as well, and he did mention that this is where the headache is now, that because it's somewhere where people are a lot, these channels, these platforms are then being used. But then what are we seeing more of that we didn't see
before? That's a good question. And maybe let's ask what you're not seeing. I think that's where the issue is. So I work with some organizations, Foxglove Legal and Global Witness and Kenya Human Rights Commission that, presented a report to NCIC last Friday, which sort of started this whole debate of, should Facebook be suspended or not suspended? What are we not seeing? I think you're my friend on Facebook. Mm-hmm. So when I post stuff, you probably will see them. Mm-hmm. Okay? But not everybody sees your timeline the way you see it. Mm-hmm. So someone makes decisions, or algorithms, actually, robots make decisions as to what you will see. And it's different for someone who is an active user of Facebook as well as other platforms. But there's some people in this country, 10 to 12 million people use Facebook as their primary social media site, right? So that scale alone tells you that even a drop of suspicion that something bad is going on in that platform could really, really have a massive impact. Secondly, who makes those decisions, and what informs the algorithms that say that Ndu will see this advert, and not this. So the problem is, and I want to sort of debunk the myth that everyone is talking. Of course, Facebook can't police everybody. We're not even going there. We're going to advertisements. When you pay money to actually promote hate, to call, one community names and, to literally spread misinformation and very inciting words on that platform that also does not accept promoting ads for peace, like videos calling for peace, Kenyans, this is election time. They will not accept those adverts, but they will accept adverts that are basically pre-genocide messages and, calling for a genocide situation. That is the problem. Because
is what you're saying really true?
100%. And it was in the statement we gave. The NCIC themselves said that they have had numerous attempts to promote peace messages, some of them actually featuring journalists. I think it was a big campaign by NCIC, and that video will not be promoted on Facebook. So we are not talking about Ndu and your 200 friends who are posting things. If that was the extent of the limit, it's not as threatening. But now we are weaponizing more than your 200 followers, you potentially could say, I want people in Rift Valley to see this message that is saying this about Kikuyus, or I want people in Luo Nyanza to see this ads that are saying this about this other community. And that's dangerous. That's where it changes completely.
And this is actually happening from what you're saying.
100%. We've got documents I can give you. And it is not just happening in Kenya. We've seen this in India, where there's also targeted ethnic violence after the elections because of inaction by Facebook, even after it had been flagged. We've seen from the Facebook files that Francis Hogan released last year that it is the same situation that happened in Myanmar, the same situation that actually happened, and you can actually link Facebook to the ongoing civil war in Ethiopia, and it also happened in the United States, where the January 6th attack on the Capitol was planned.
You know what you're saying is actually fairly serious, because essentially you are saying, if I understand you to be saying this correctly, if I understand you correctly, that Facebook allows on its platforms individuals and groupings who put across messages that can be considered to be incendiary. But on the other hand, when people want to deliberately put peace messages, individuals or organizations like NCIC, then Facebook does not allow them to do so.
That's 100% what I'm saying.
That is exactly what you're saying.
Yes. And we've got
under
evidence.
what circumstances does this happen?
So
I'm sure now you've studied and looked. All right.
Yeah.
Does Facebook have a policy that says we shall not promote political messaging? Does Facebook have a policy that says we shall not promote violence? Does Facebook have a policy that says we shall not promote hate speech? So if that policy exists, can we start by saying that policy does exist? Then we say then it's the policing of this policy that has some loopholes. Is that what we're saying?
So there's two levels. Yes, policy. Facebook does have multiple policies. And, they even have a toolkit just dedicated to Kenya, And when you look at that toolkit on how they will, prevent election and misinformation, election-related violence, hate speech, and misinformation, it looks good on paper, right? But then there's a problematic page. It's page 13 of that toolkit will give you a very interesting story. Where they tell you that we have third-party companies that we work with that help to verify. People understand hatupangwingwi means what and why it can be hate speech and why it has been banned. So they do hire third-party companies that they submit some of this content to, once. And remember, they already had algorithms. So if you use words like kill or, so those we assume will be blocked by robots. They shouldn't pass. So the messages that pass to the next level are now processed either by their content moderators in Samia Park or by, this company, third-party companies that they've engaged. But they say regarding political messaging, which is now very controversial, that they will not submit political messaging to third-party auditors, quote unquote, because they want Kenyans to be able to know what kind of leaders that they have in play, and that they do not want to interfere or sense a political dialogue. Sounds good if you're attending a political science class, right? But now when you come to what actually happens in practice, then if you're using that same rule, why would you then have your ads passing, hateful messages and not passing the peace messages? They're both political messages. Why would you then have the policy working against peace but promoting hate? So that is one problem. The second problem we have with their policies, a lot of these ads that were actually submitted, and Latif, this wasn't like a theoretical, desk review. It literally took some of the hateful messages that were used during the 2007 before post-election violence. Some of those messages that we know will make anyone from the affected community sort of feel provoked, and those were the messages that were promoted and put as adverts to check whether the Facebook policy would flag them down and ban those ads. All those 20 ads were approved, 10 in English, 10 in Swahili. So tell me, in fact, we are asking Facebook, can you tell us exactly what you mean? Because you've got a very good, PR department or, various people who have even given various press statements that were echoed by CS Joe Musheru, that we've taken down 37,000 pieces of hate and 42,000 pieces of incitement in the past 6 months. What does that actually mean? Can you give us an analysis of what percentage was this that you caught? Because we clearly can see that your CV is working really well. What does this represent? And when you take them down, it's after how long before they were posted? How many people had seen them? What's the impact? Don't
what
just
is the
tell
impact?
us. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Because even as we're looking at some of these things now and saying that, look, a body as big as this, I mean, we know, just like you said, millions of people who are on this platform on a daily. What is the impact of some of these messages? And that's the question here, because that's where the danger would then lie.
It's horrible. It's horrific. Let's start from where we are right now, and then I'll give you other examples in the real world. Well, in the bigger world, not real world, but in the real world still. So, number one, let's look at what terror is, okay? You're not terrified when someone actually... You're not only terrified when someone actually breaks into your home and beats you on account of, we lost or whatever, you come from this community. That is, of course, it's terrifying, but that's not the only time you're terrified. You are terrified if there's a looming threat of violence that is targeting you because of your ethnicity, because of, your identity, okay? So the perpetual exposure to threatening messages on social media makes people live in a perpetual state of terror. And that is bad enough, because that will make sure that we will never have any real progress towards a cohesion as a country. Because I'll always, yes, I did not get violently attacked, but I have to go back to work and work with Ndu and her community thinks this of us. I just saw someone calling, one community wathogs and, like yesterday. So if I'm from that community and this person, just by the surname in Kenya, we can more or less guess where the other person is coming from. How am I supposed to relate to that community? Okay. So Facebook can get away partly by saying that they're still building their capacity, but we're asking them very serious questions. Violence is not a joke in Kenya. Post-election violence is not theory. We know how it looks like, and we can feel it, and we've been given all indications that it might happen. If Facebook is further militarizing people who spread hate on their platforms, where 12 million Kenyans have access to these messages every single day, there's a problem.
Can you say, though, that they are actively doing this if they've offered a platform to people to operate freely and independently? Can you then say that they are directly involved in spreading these messages by virtue of the fact that they've given the platform to people to use for free?
Just like the media do. But can you come here because you've given the platform for people to speak for freely? There's some things I'll say here and I'll immediately be switched off. Tomorrow you'll be facing media cancel. That's where the problem is. To him who much is given, much is expected. And in my life as a communicator, when I'm working with corporates, we have to make sure that they're respecting the environment, they're respecting the social the society in terms of their human impact, and they're respecting the law. Unfortunately, on this one, Facebook is failing on two principles of ESG. They're failing on the human impact, the social impact, and they're failing on governance. Which there's no one country that can fully police what Facebook does comprehensively. Yes, they're an American company, but the American law will protect Americans, and that's why some people think we love litigating and human rights noise and unnecessary for that. But who is going to protect Kenyans from a company that's bigger than a government, just their revenue from 2021, which was a year that, most companies did not make profit. Their revenue from 2021 alone was bigger than our GDP,
But let me ask this question. What then does Facebook aim to gain by allowing the situation that you've described? I mean,
profit.
What sort of profit?
Oh, advertising revenue. They make a lot of money by the viral.
Right.
The viral.
Yes. The viral nature of some of the communication that is on the platform. But then, if that is the aim, then why admit some and
not all?
Yes,
no one is going to promote when you pay for your content to, when you pay Facebook to advertise, they're going to place your adverts where it's likely to reach the viewers that you're paying for. Okay, so because peace is not popular, it does not have a high profit tag to it. So they're going, and now Facebook is actually competing with TikTok. So they're intentionally promoting videos. So if you post something on stories, you'll see. You'll even if you do this in your private Facebook. And I'm not a hater of Facebook. I am a very, very dedicated user of Facebook. So I'm a customer, and when I'm speaking, I'm also speaking on my own account because I want to be safe on this platform. Right. They don't have to promote videos that have already been flagged as dangerous, that have violence. But why do they make it, when you view a video when you see a video on your timeline that has 1.1 million views, what does that tell you?
It's been around the block.
You're going to click it. Okay? So sometimes they can actually flag. And these Facebook files that were released were actually, some of them were analysis by their own staff who are uncomfortable with this situation. Going back to Ndu's question of what's the impact, we've seen that now you can literally draw a straight line between Instagram and increasing rates of suicide by teenagers and even children. The impact is big. There's no one country that has strong enough regulations or laws to police social media. It has grown so fast. It started as one thing and became, media. And now, with the announcement by Facebook, even your timeline is going to change. It's not going to be stories from your friends. They will be choosing, it will literally be a news network where you just see headlines, which we don't also know how they're targeting. Because remember, this is the same company that worked with Cambridge Analytica to collect our innermost information, when you have had your baby and whose baby shower you attended, all that information is being used and targeted. You go to Instagram, which is owned by the same Meta, and if you're balding, I see we don't have that problem here. If you have a receding hairline, within a day or two, you'll start having adverts of hair loss
potions and
issues.
Lotions that will make
so
hair,
this
hair
is not
grow.
this is not a benign.
It's the nature of the business, and you sign up and you agree to these terms and conditions, and they tell you, please go and read the terms and conditions. It is the business. We'll talk about this a bit more after we take this break. It's 28 minutes to 10. Kenya's biggest conversation. Neema Mutemi is a communications and security expert. We are talking about failure to police election-related hate speech on social media platforms, talking specifically about Facebook, and complaints have been raised about Facebook. We want to understand exactly what these complaints are and who is this that is raising these complaints and the issues. Samsung, Ndu.
Right. So, we talked earlier about how you're able to capture these wonderful moments. And what Samsung is doing come the 10th of August this year, actually it's next week on Wednesday, what they're looking at is the new phones. It's the G4 Flip phone, and it's also the Z Fold phone. So we're looking at the Galaxy Z Fold 4 and the Galaxy Z Flip 4. And Samsung are unveiling the very bleeding edge of mobile technology, the global leaders of foldable technology and smartphones, which give users access to the very best smartphone technology and features in a much smaller and comfortable form factor. So the global Samsung Galaxy Unpacked live stream on Wednesday the 10th from 4 p.m. will be shown on KTN Home or online on Samsung.com, and you have a chance to use the hashtag Galaxy Unpacked to join the conversation. New technology in a flip phone or a fold phone. Great stuff.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We know it is cold, but Cold Stone Creamery has hot deals for you. This month, enjoy cups of rich and creamy ice cream, delicious ice cream cakes, and fresh oven-baked cakes at amazing prices. Visit any of our stores in Nairobi or Mombasa and indulge in your favorite treats. Cold Stone Creamery, the ultimate ice cream experience. To be Kenyan is to embrace diversity. The many faces and colors of our nation are what makes Kenya, Kenya.
Election bila noma, penda jirani. This message is brought to you by the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, NCIC, in partnership with the Standard Group.
Mama Kim, mambo poa. Niuzie toothpaste ile ya Power 3. We nawe, ati 3 nini? Toothpaste ya Power 3. Yani Aqua Fresh Gel. Aqua Fresh Gel. Hiyo ni gani tena? Wacha nikwambie.
Aqua Fresh Gel ni dawa ya meno ya kipekee iliyothibitishwa na power ya 3-in-1. Piga mswaki mara 2 kwa siku na siri ya usafi wa mdomo, fresh breath, strong teeth na gums zenye afya bora. Tabasamu huanza na Aqua Fresh Gel.
Do you sometimes come across all this interesting and amazing content online, and before you know it, you're 10 tabs in? Or sometimes your browser refreshes itself and you lose that video or write-up you were keen on. In these moments, I bet you wish you could store this content somewhere so it's accessible to you when you need it or want to share it. Well, you can. It is as simple as putting it in your pocket. Thanks to Pocket by Mozilla, you can curate what you love, save it to your list, and access it even when you're offline. It gets better. You have the option of listening to your favorite articles, and before you ask, of course you can watch video content as well as even when offline.
Coming down in some parts of Nairobi, we'll see highs of 19 and lows of 14. It's sunny at 18 in Nakuru, highs of 24. 17 will be the high in a rainy Nyeri, where it's 14 at the moment, and 15 and sunny in Eldoret, highs of 22. And lows of 11. It's raining in Mombasa at 25. It'll go to highs of 27, and 28 will be the high recognized in Malindi. It's currently raining at 25. 22 and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 28. 27 will be the high in a sunny Kakamega at 23. Kampala sunny at 22, sunny at 25 in Dar es Salaam, and 11 degrees and sunny in Johannesburg, going to highs of 18. It's 23 and sunny in Lagos, and we'll see highs of 32 in Kinshasa, where it's sunny currently at 23. 35 is where Thursday afternoon looks like in Beijing. 36 will be the high. It's raining in Paris, thunderstorms. 31 will be the high, and 24 will be the high in a mostly cloudy London. Clear conditions Wednesday night in New York. Coming into Thursday, we'll see highs of 33 and lows of 25.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, out of traffic hour according to the clock, but Jogger Road is saying no, and Landis Road is also saying no because it's back-to-back traffic, bumper to bumper in both directions as heading out towards Kamkunji. Yeah, we know that bus station is a beehive of activity this morning, so watch out for that if you're headed in that direction. Langata Road looking a lot better now, and as well as the Thika Superhighway. Traffic seems to have cleared on Kiambu Road. We're looking at Westlands, which is a bit busy here and there, but not too much in terms of traffic as of now. Through the morning, talk to us. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
22 minutes to 10. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. We have Neema Mutemi with us in the studio, communications and security expert. We're talking about moderation of content, particularly election-related hate speech on social media platforms such as Facebook. So we've been talking about we have been complaining, we have been doing this and the other. Neema, who's we?
We as Kenyans, actually, we have an ongoing petition that was tweeted by Kenya Human Rights Commission. Yesterday, we already have more than 1,000 signatures. So Kenyans are interested in this issue, but we also have organizations that have been working.
How many signatures do you need?
We needed 1,500, 1,600, I think, for a start, so that we have the clout, because sometimes this can be looked at as an agenda of some human rights organization. So we wanted to actually see if Kenyans care about this, and they've signed the petition in less than a day. They've already
Do we know that they are all
committed.
Kenyans, the people who have signed?
We'll get the data, but I know we have a lot of Kenyans who've signed.
So is there any specific group or organization that has come together and done this particular study and said, we are looking at content on Facebook and we have picked out X number of pieces of posts that are related to Kenya's election,
Yes.
and out of that, X number have been promoted. Out of the promoted ones, X are promoting violence and 0 are promoting peace. Do you have that kind of information?
Yes, we have that
All right,
report.
give us the numbers.
So we have that report by Global Witness and Foxglove Legal, who had done this study before in Myanmar and in Ethiopia.
Mm-hmm.
And they were, because every
So
time
my
they
question is specific to
they
Kenya.
do
We are talking about
yes,
election-related hate speech
Yes.
in Kenya.
Yes.
Do you have the figures for Kenya?
Yes, we do.
Okay, give us those figures.
I can't give you the specific messages, sadly.
Not specific
although
messages.
I have them, but
The numbers. Say-
100% of 10 Swahili hateful messages that were submitted to Facebook, all of them were approved. Even though Facebook has content moderators that are Swahili speaking, so they should be able to catch that. It shouldn't be because it's
My
they don't have the
question,
capacity.
I'm sorry, I've got to be a bit brash on this. My question is specific. Have you gone onto Facebook, looked and surveyed, and found posts posted by other people that contain hate speech in Kenya, relating to Kenya and inciting violence in Kenya? Have you found such? How many have you found?
NCAC
How
has
many?
done that,
Okay,
honestly.
how many
And
are
there's
there?
a report, let me just pull it up. There's a report I got yesterday, the latest, and it was covered by even the Standard ran the story that showed out of all social media platforms, TikTok is actually leading in hate speech, followed by Facebook, followed by, I don't know whether it was Twitter, then WhatsApp, and then Telegram, which was last, and Instagram also insignificant. So
If
we
I
do
remember
have
the
that
story that
statistic.
covered the NCIC.
Yeah.
It also did not talk about the specific. It did not say we commissioned a study on this time. Does it? Is there a study that has been commissioned?
It's not a study. This is an evolving, this is real time. So what happens, NCSC has a whole media monitoring unit that they literally watch screens and watch and follow, all the social media platforms. Now, there's information NCIC, DCI, and everyone who's watching will never be able to see, which is what we need to get from Facebook, from the collaboration. So, for instance, if I target an ad that only people in Kisumu are going to see, I can monitor all I want from Nairobi. I'm not going to see those ads. The people in Kisumu would. And it would take such an immense amount of investment for the regulating authorities to literally put a unit everywhere. Whereas this is a company that can
what I'm
actually
saying is, by the
present
time
the
we
information.
get to a point where we say publicly that this particular platform is encouraging and allowing the promotion of hate speech, then we need to have the information. And
We
say,
have more than enough, Latif.
That's
We've
what
got
I'm asking. I'm just asking for those basic figures. Don't give me the details of the information. Just tell me.
No, we've got
we have
more than
found
enough.
10,000 posts on Facebook. Out of those 10,000 posts, 6,000 are promoting hate speech.
Okay, so how does this relate to what the NCIC said? Because he was here on Monday, which is when actually this story made it into the Standard on Monday, right? So there was this report by the Commission, which is a weekly thing that they've been doing recently. And so if they give this example and saying 48 cases of hate speech picked from July 15th to July 21, TikTok had the highest numbers, right? And those were 20. Facebook followed with 12 cases of hate speech. Twitter and WhatsApp had 11 and 3 cases respectively. And so what they're saying is that in this week, this is the numbers that they have seen. Is that in relation to what you're saying?
That's not the numbers they have seen. Those are the numbers they've assessed. You understand? So it doesn't say that Kenyans only had 48 hateful messages on all social media. But those are specific incidences. Remember, there's a lot of legalese, there's a lot of security, national security interests, actually, officials that are involved in this. So some of the the reports we are not going to get as members of the public, as the media. You could interrogate them further to give you the specifics in terms of scale. But a good place to start, Latif, to answer your question, would be Facebook. They've told us they have flagged 37,000 posts that went through. A good question to ask as a follow-up is out of how many? Because not, again, everything that is flagged gets taken down. So what is the percentage of what is taken down and what is the threshold? Because what we are questioning is the threshold. It seems to be very, very high to actually cause them to take down a post and even to close an account that is perpetually set up for just spreading of hate. As a bare minimum, we are asking them to increase the investment in places like Kenya in the area of content moderation, because they obviously have a huge capacity problem. If you're having these kinds of cases and this dangerous situation so close to the election, really, we should have invested more than enough, Swahili speakers, even the priority languages. The NCIC has also released a hotspots list. So bare minimum, you should have people who speak Luo, you should have people who are fluent in Kalenjin, because we've even seen with the doctoring of the videos, people misinterpreting and, putting fake subtitles. They should have had, an adequate investment in safeguarding our elections. So that's what we are talking about, because it seems that the investment in content moderation outside of the US is very minimum, and it really lives are really beginning to be at stake because of their poor investments here.
Can I just perhaps point to a different perspective altogether? If indeed it is true what you say, and Facebook is allowing all this communication, this toxic communication through their network, is that not also an opportunity for the security and the intelligence agencies in our country to pinpoint and to determine who it is who is saying what and where it is that it's coming from?
Yes, it is, and they do know this. But some of the accounts, like NCIC reported, some accounts are, yes, Kenya name looks like a Kenyan on the thumbnail, but they're based in Germany or the US. So it is fine. By the time you're arresting them, the harm has already been done.
Actually,
but
yes, go ahead.
Sorry, but several times, and the NCIC has also had, this problem with Facebook. When they have flagged those individual posts, nothing happens, and this is not just
where nothing
specific
here means
they don't switch off the account. They do not,
You see, I wasn't even going technical on this subject. I was saying that because of what you are referring to as a proliferation, does that then not give us a very accurate picture of how it is certain individuals think in this country and what it is that they are putting out, so we actually know? And isn't it better to actually know what is happening than if this whole thing was subterranean and you had no clue it is happening, and then it shocks you by somebody suddenly exploding? This is like a warning, so you know. The question I would ask is, beyond shouting about how it should be shut down and what should happen, what is it that the agencies that deal with this matter, how is it that they're treating this information to ensure that they themselves are also prepared to ensure that they can counter it?
I think that's a good question. I'm not going to answer it in its totality because I also agree with the question 100%. But a good something we should debunk is nobody wants Facebook to be shut down. I, for one, will have to learn how to use Instagram properly and to keep up with Twitter and its hashtags. No, like seriously, nobody is calling for Facebook to be shut. But that doesn't mean we have two choices between a completely unregulated Facebook and freedom of speech. I think we can.
It's not completely unregulated.
No. Honestly, Latif, and I really want you to engage me on this. We are not regulating Facebook, first and foremost.
It is not completely
even though we have been making noise about
there's
suspending
regulation
Facebook.
on Facebook. You've just talked about, they have their terms and conditions. They have
That's self-regulation.
Their regulations. There's self-regulation there. And then we have laws in this country.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing up those laws. Latif, let's talk about this suspension of Facebook story that seems to have upset everyone. What would it look like to suspend Facebook in Kenya?
But why suspend it?
No. What would can it actually happen? Can you actually suspend Facebook in Kenya? Facebook does not have a communication authority license. So you cannot revoke their license like you do with media houses. So
you can block access.
Whatever, yes, and that would be interfering with another layer of rights. So even that suspension is such a difficult thing to achieve. So we shouldn't even, be using that as and I'm not calling for suspension. I'm calling for them to actually implement minimum standards that their own guidelines call the break glass measures.
Nema, I am of the view that this conversation is being tilted in one particular direction, and yet there are very many conversations that can revolve around this very same thing that we are talking about. Because before TikTok, there was another thing called Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, before all these guys came onto the scene, people were spewing hate speech. Okay? NCIC came into being because we realized the dangers that are posed by these so-called freedoms that people have that some people will abuse.
It was people were using leaflets before.
Yes, they were using leaflets.
To a greater.
Yes. And then the moment we had vernacular radio stations all over, so that even I could have one in my own bedroom, then it got even more. Now, we have a country that has allowed that proliferation of communication. So anybody can communicate. Now, we are encountering one of the pitfalls of such freedoms. It's just what I may refer to as a necessary evil. It's something that will occur. It's a baby and the bath water here. Okay? And the water, as I see it, is not as dirty as it's being painted.
So do you want stronger laws that...
Oh, no.
that make...
I'm not
I want
going
NCIC
there.
to do its job more.
Yes.
I'll just picking up from what CT is saying, I hear what you're saying, and I hear the concern of the proliferation of hate on social media is real, okay? Is it a new avenue that could be used to then spread hate and incite violence? Of course it is. What should be done? Is it dealing with these platforms or is it dealing with the root cause?
Yes.
I think we should go to the root cause. I'm opposed to those things of saying even Facebook itself becoming its own police and authority. I have said this on this show before. That thing of Facebook waking up one day and deciding we don't like Donald Trump. People are complaining about him, so we block Donald Trump from accessing that Facebook. I am opposed to it. If he wants to post, let him post. Have ways of regulating and dealing with him. Let people stop following him. Let people stop accessing. Use your algorithm to reduce the people who view
what
his messages.
Or counter whatever it is that he's presenting.
Counter what he's saying.
Yes.
But that thing of saying that, because we've noticed there are people who are anti-vaxxers, so we're not going to allow anti-vax messages on our platform.
No, that is interference.
Where do you stop?
Yes.
Where do you stop?
No, and I agree with you. I agree with you totally. But let's go back to the issue of power. Who has power here? We are literally talking about a situation where, Facebook is more powerful than the government of Kenya.
No, it isn't.
It is.
In what realm?
No, it isn't.
It
In
is.
what realm?
In terms of, Facebook can actually, or has actually influenced a lot of things in the society in Kenya. It can influence culture. It influences spending ability to even how we think. So for the reason why we still have to put a lot of emphasis for not just Facebook, but big tech and actually multinational companies is when they have that amount of power, they need to follow it and tamper it with matching responsibility. When you have the power to influence an entire generation to think a certain way, to relate, and it has been good as well. They have, if it was not for social media, we would not have an emphasis on, conservation and the green movement. Like, they have popularized something that the political class was unable to talk about freely, and to get the young generation, millennials, actually very passionate about human rights injustices and environmental injustices. That same power can be used to also for the good, and that's what we are saying. It's not like not having Facebook versus, if we have Facebook, and we also don't want Facebook to be under, politicians. Because they still play a very important role in the newly defined democratic space. Because this is what it is. This is the new democratic space. However, should they militarize the people who would never have had the kind of audience if you were using Wakenya? And if you're going to weaponize them, weaponize the peacemakers as well. Just apply the peace, the rule fairly. And let's remember, we also have limits to our constitutional rights of freedom of expression, which can be curtailed, and we surrender, as a civil liberty, we surrender our freedoms when national security is threatened, or the physical security of the person next to you.
The curtailing you speak of are what we sometimes refer to as consequences. In this country, if you want to walk along this street and pee in the full view of everybody, you do so, you'll get arrested. Okay? Freedoms are things that people must internalize, understand, and determine how it is they are going to use it. The real strength of fighting what we're talking about here is precisely that, getting people to be the ones who are in a position to make the decisions on how to handle these things. If people do not accept not to proliferate hate speech, it doesn't matter how many laws we create, they will create even more ways of transmitting those same hate speeches.
Yeah, but some are born, not hating anybody, but because of their constant use of this platform, they become militaries. And we've seen radicalization. Today we're just talking about election. We've seen recruitment of Al-Shabaab here in Kenya happening on Facebook. Like, seriously, they can also require the community.
Nema, what you're saying is true, but when you're talking about militarizing people and getting people to be extremists, it's usually not Facebook. Facebook is just a purveyor of messages. Certain things happen that predisposition people to be in a certain way.
Yes,
it's a town hall.
100%.
You can't shut down a town hall because people are coming here to meet and they are.
No, but even by Facebook's own community standards, that's one of the things they have disallowed, the convening of those. So they're still not falling short in terms of implementing their own community standards. So Latif, the town hall chairman, also can decide what is going to be discussed. So in this case, they said we will not be supporting, the communing of violent extremist and terrorist groups, and they're failing. So me as I wind up, because I feel like we've talked about everything. If we can compel, just think about it for a minute. If we can compel Facebook to commit a fraction of its 117 billion annual revenue estimated from last year, to improving the conditions of content moderation in Kenya. I'm talking about Kenya because this is where my interests are.
Who do we need to call?
Everyone. If you can call Masindegwa, you can call Kendi and Twiga or Mark Zuckerberg.
Just give us the phone number of the person.
If we can get them to just commit a fraction to improving things, we will not actually have. And by improving the conditions, it means even the content moderators themselves, they need to make it appealing to actually do this kind of work. They need to provide the proper mental health care, for these content moderators. If you're going to volunteer to clean up Facebook, to watch the worst of the worst, Latif, the figures you want, basically, if someone has to sit down and literally read hate the whole day, you need to support them.
It'll affect you.
Yes, of course, it is going to affect you. You need to be paid better.
Are they not?
Yes.
No, they are not, and that's why they have been sued in the employment court. So that's another area, but it's still relevant because if then you're not even in good terms with the people who are doing the moderation yourself, how can you then commit to Kenyans that you're doing your best to make Facebook safer?
What you are talking about is what happens in every industry. This fight has to take place.
At some point, yes.
It has to, because a business person isn't interested really in all these things we're talking about. They're interested in the bottom line. Now, they have to be made aware and they have to understand that the business may not do as well as they want if certain things are not adhered to.
Yes.
So,
and the judge we had earlier talked about unionizing. The reason that the case is in court is because they blocked Facebook content moderators from unionizing. That's illegal even by our laws.
As a basic.
Yes.
Neema,
and if Facebook can act, all these other companies will follow suit because they have that power. Thank you, Latif.
Thank you. Tumekusikia. Tutapatia namba, tutawapigia simu.
Sisi hata email address tunaweza kuwatumia.
Tutawaambia.
Hata namba yao, hata simu.
And send in a petition. Please sign our petition.
Signing of online petitions. I need to be convinced that they ever move anywhere. Thank you, Neema. Neema Mutemi is a communications and security expert. She's been here with us. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation today. We'll be back tomorrow, the full Friday, first Friday of August. Good morning, 10 o'clock.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4